Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Nika Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What if Deku possess invisible quirk? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. It didn't make sense. The doctor said so himself. Midoriya had all the signs of a healthy boy. He even lacked the extra pinky toe joint. That was guaranteed to confirm a quirk would develop. He still couldn't figure out how having an extra toe joint or not could decide whether your body would generate electricity or let you control the weather, but hey, the world was weird. Help. One thing was clear, though, Midoriya didn't think twice before he ran after the cry for help. He ran as fast as he could, with the scene of the crime making itself apparent the closer he reached the source, an abandoned park. And, well, honestly, scene of the crime was a bit too intense for Bakugo and his cronies bullying a kid, but still. Ah, shut up, the explosive blonde boy said as he pounded his fists. You're learning your place. Kaken, stop it. Midoriya ran in front of the group and stopped, spreading his arms wide as the only thing he could think of at the moment. Move it, Deku. Bakugo hissed. We're going to teach this beach her place. Why? Midoriya stood his ground. She ruined our game of hide and seek. I'm sorry, what? You heard me, Deku. This cheater used her quirk to find us. Bakugo explained sternly. She cheated, and so, we'll put her in her place. Midoriya glanced at the girl, who lowered her head and grimaced, and turned back to Bakugo and his group, who were impatiently waiting for him to move. He did this a couple more times as his brain tried to process what was going on. Bakugo, the same guy who would beat people up for more understandable reasons, now wanted to beat up a girl because she cheated on a game of hide and seek. A game of hide and seek he and his group invited her to. The girl who they didn't even know her quirk. And considering Bakugo was quite lenient on using quirks, he probably used his own in the game at least once. So, stop muttering and get the F out before I force you. Midoriya snapped back to reality, and took a moment to think. Immediately afterwards, he stood his ground, and made what resembled a hastily made battle stance. Oh, playing the hero, huh? Well then, we'll teach you your place too. A chill went down Midoriya's spine as the prospect of being on the receiving end of another of Bakugo's beating made itself known. Only this time, there was a girl that would get some of the brunt too. That wasn't something he could allow, but what was he supposed to do? His quirk hadn't even manifested yet. And indeed, it was then that it happened. Midoriya opened his arm, and from it a lime-green sphere emerged from his palm as he aimed it forward to the boys. Wait dash. Midoriya's sphere blew up, without even being struck by Bakugo, who stood behind with his cronies as a green dust cloud surrounded the spot where Midoriya and the girl used to be. Except once the smoke dispersed, Midoriya and the girl were nowhere to be seen. At least, that's what Bakugo and his group saw. Midoriya, meanwhile, saw the world become a tint of green as he and the girl looked around. Besides the tint, it didn't look like anything had happened. Was that his quirk just now? Was his quirk just making the world look green for a moment? The hell? Where did Deku and the girl go? Hearing those words come from Bakugo gave Midoriya some context as to what was going on. He and his group looked around with confusion at the spot where Midoriya and the girl stood. And indeed, once he looked down, he saw he didn't have the same tint as the rest of the world. And neither did the girl, for that matter. So, since Bakugo and his lackeys were acting like Midoriya wasn't there, and he and the girl didn't have the same tint as them, then for all intents and purposes, he and the girl were now invisible. And considering Bakugo and his cronies were still around, that was most definitely a blessing. Ha, Midoriya blew himself up. And the girl too, the winged boy exclaimed. What? That BSTRD. I'm the only who can blow him up. Bakugo growled. Although, granted, it was about time he killed himself. The boy's eyes widened as he clutched his chest. Did Bakugo seriously just say that? Did he really hear his best friend tell him to kill himself? Geez, Bakugo, don't you think that's a bit much? One of the cronies remarked. I mean, I didn't like Midoriya either, but dash. It's not harsh, that a-hole looked down on me, and if he did that, then he would look down on everyone else. Bakugo argued, rolling his eyes. Hell, he might have even looked down on that girl once we beat him up. Midoriya tightened his grip as he fought back tears. To tell him to kill himself would be one thing, but to have the nerve to assume he would look down on him and the girl he was just protecting. This was how he acted all along, didn't he? How Kaken? No, Bakugo saw him all along, wasn't it? When he still saw their friendship as. Well, a friendship, he saw it as a means for someone to look down on himself, when all Midoriya did was admire him for his quirk. Well, joke was on him. He had lost a friend. A friend who could only turn invisible with no clear offensive capabilities, but still a friend. Thank you. Oh right, he was with a girl. And no problem dash. It was then that Midoriya was rendered speechless by what he saw. The girl had golden eyes with orange circles around them, a pair of orange blushing marks on her cheeks, and hair that was lighter than his own. What also caught his attention was her uniform. It was the same uniform as the one the girls on his school wore. Was she a classmate all along and he didn't notice her? Well, no, obviously, SHE wouldn't notice him. That's just how things worked in Kuja Elementary. He was so astounded, in fact, that he didn't notice the world slowly lose the green tint, and thus the invisibility his quirk had provided. I'm Tomoko Shiratoko, the girl said, the fearful tone in her voice having vanished. Aizawa and Midoriya, the boy said as he extended his hand forward. And nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Shiratoko said as she shook hands with him. So, you're probably wondering how they thought I was a cheater? Midoriya wordlessly nodded. My quirk's called Search. Shiratoko said, taking it as a sign to explain herself. If I tag someone, my quirk lets me know their location as long as they're not too far away from me. Like, say, 3 apples from where I'm standing dash. That's so cool. Midoriya perked up, startling the girl. So, if you tagged someone before heading into an escort mission, you could split. And still be able to know where they're located in case something goes awry. Can you do it with multiple people or only one? How many details can you know, exactly? Like, do you know their general direction, or would you be able to know precisely where they stood assuming you knew the layout of the location? Midoriya paused as he realized what he just did, and he promptly backed away. Sorry. I just got so excited when I heard about your quirk dash. It's okay, you're actually the first person I meet who doesn't mind my quirk, Shiratoko scratched the back off her head. Most people either avoid me or want to beat me up. Bakugo's mug came to mind for the latter. And you cheating on hide and seek. Was that true? Well, we played tag first before we played hide and seek, and I got so excited that I forgot to turn off my quirk, Shiratoko smiled sheepishly. So, I guess you could say I cheated? Midoriya thought about it, and he flashed a little smile. Well, Bakugo's a big fat cheater. It's about time he got a taste of his own medicine. Shiratoko chuckled. I see. Was the guy who wanted to beat me up your friend? He's not anymore. Not after what he said, Midoriya shook his head. But, anyway, wanna go somewhere else? A place where Bakugo won't be around. I'd like to. Shiratoko extended her hand, and after a moment of hesitation, Midoriya grabbed it, and the duo left the park. And as they did, Midoriya gained a confident smile on his face. After all, not only had he discovered his quirk, but he had made his first friend. He just made his first friend. Having an actual friend made things so much easier. Midoriya and Shiratoko became friends after the fateful day he saved her and discovered his quirk. She, as he later found out, was a fellow classmate in elementary school, and as luck would have it, she was also her classmate during middle school. And truth be told, considering all the bullying Midoriya got over the seemingly uselessness of his quirk, having a shoulder to lean on was appreciated. Currently, they were in the middle of what would be the final class of their middle school years, and the day was calm. Well, as calm as a day could be with Bakugo around. Alright, class, put down your pens and deliver your tests. Almost everyone sighed in frustration, while Midoriya handed his exam without protest, and Bakugo rolled his eyes. Once the papers were handed, the teacher took a deep breath and spoke. Well, I'm supposed to give you one of those tests where you say what you want to be when you grow up, but what the heck, it's so obvious you guys want to be heroes. The class erupted into cheers, with everyone but Midoriya, Shiratoko, and Bakugo showcasing their quirks joyously. Alright, calm down, class, no quirks in the classroom, the teacher sighed. Now, remember that you still have high school to get through, so focus on surviving that first. I'll hand you a list of high schools you can go to, and universities where you can earn your hero license dash. You mean there's more than one? Everybody turned to the source of the mocking comment, Katsuki Bakugo, who had his arms folded and his legs crossed. Don't cheat with us, old man, we all know there's only one hero university anybody's going to go, and that's UA. Then, he got on top of his desk. And if there's anybody here who's going to UA University, it'll be me. The only one in this class with any hero potential. The rest of the class, except for Midoriya, snapped back at this statement, the most vocal about it being Shiratoko. Hey, we all got potential to be heroes. Don't be so arrogant. Shut up, Shiratoko. Bakugo snapped. You only barely have more potential than most of these extras. Ah yes, Tomoko Shiratoko, the teacher absent-mindedly remarked. You're planning to apply to UA too, aren't you? Shiratoko flinched, fearing that having her plan to go to UA would cause Bakugo to look at her. However, while he did steal a glance at her, he quickly lost interest. Meh, not a big deal. She'll become a decent rescue hero, if she gets lucky. Doesn't Midoriya want to go to UA too? And it was then that Midoriya felt the world's cruel trickster nature looking down on him. The rest of the classroom looked at Midoriya incredulously, and Bakugo slowly snapped to him, his confusion mixed with utter rage. Midoriya? With that quirk of his? Yeah, right. All he can do is blow himself up briefly. What kind of hero could he even be? And as his classmates' jeers continued, Midoriya noticed two particular looks. The first one was Shirotoko, who clasped her hands together and frowned, clearly trying to express regret for not being able to do anything else but watch right now. The other one was Bakugo, whose expression spoke for him. I'll see you after class. After class, Midoriya found himself pinned against a wall, being lifted by the neck of his school uniform. Who are you trying to F with, Deku? Bakugo snapped at the greenette, creating firecrackers from his free palm. Do you really think you could get in UA with that weak-ass quirk? Well. The answer's no. A loser like you will never be able to enter the most prestigious hero university in Japan. And what about Shirotoko? You didn't seem to mind it when the teacher said she'd apply too. Humph, at least her quirk isn't completely worthless. Your quirk, meanwhile, only blows you up. You can't use that to be a hero, or even a villain. Bottom line is, getting to UA is just a pipe dream, so . Suddenly, a paper ball hit the back of Bakugo's head. He and Midoriya turned to the source, and saw Shirotoko standing nearby, carrying a couple paper ball. Shirotoko! Midoriya chirped. Bakugo narrowed his eyes. How the hell did you find us? I used my quirk, duh. But that's illegal, snapped the guy who liberally used his quirk. Both for intimidation, and just because. Besides, this is just between me and Deku. PSS off. Shirotoko smiled. Well, Izuku and I are going to UA2 to become a hero group, so if you mess with him, you'll mess with me, too. Bakugo glanced between the smiling and frowning greenette, and after doing this for a while, he dropped Midoriya and pocketed his hands. Whatever. You're not worth my time. The explosive blonde stomped away, and once he was gone, Shirotoko saved the paper ball and ran up to Midoriya, who was clutching his chest and breathing heavily. Are you okay? Shirotoko asked. I didn't arrive too late, did I? No, he didn't get physical with me, thankfully, Midoriya took one last deep breath. If there was a day where I wanted to be completely invisible, it's today. Shirotoko folded her arms behind her back. Well, you could become invisible if . Quirks aren't allowed at the school, Shirotoko, Midoriya rubbed his forehead. And unlike Bakugo, the school would definitely get on my case if they found out I used it. Midoriya lowered his head and frowned, prompting Shirotoko to do the same. Until she remembered something. My mom's going to visit you today. Midoriya immediately perked up. The walk home was fairly quiet, mostly because the other students kept their mocking thoughts either to themselves or barely at whisper level. Not that Midoriya minded, Shirotoko's news of her mother coming to visit made him feel such ecstatic joy that he could be told to his face that he was useless, and it would do nothing to remove his smile. Why? Because Shirotoko's mother was a member of the Wild Pussycats, the always cheerful Ragamuffin. Or better known by her underground hero name, Mrs. Joke. Yes, Shirotoko's mother was somehow both a member of a normal hero group and an individual underground hero. The world was still weird. Regardless, once they reached the Midoriya's apartment, the sounds of joyous laughter was heard inside, already a good sign. Midoriya promptly knocked 3 times, and his mother opened the door soon after. Oh, Izuku, you're back. Mrs. Midoriya chirped. And you brought Tomoko with you. Hi, Mrs. Midoriya. Shirotoko chirped. Is Mom here with you? Was I laughing mad a second ago? The duo simply nodded with wide smiles, and before they knew it, a woman's name called from inside. Hey, kids! Come greet your Aunt Emmy. Shirotoko and Midoriya ran past Mrs. Midoriya, and immediately slid to the living room, where a woman with green hair was sitting by the table, sporting a wide smile. She had yellow circles on her eyes, smiley faces on her cheeks, and a pair of cat-like ear things on her hair. She also had a tail that was waggling constantly, though Midoriya figured it was better not to ask what was up with that. Ragamuffin! Midoriya chirped as he took out a notebook. Please give me your autograph. Another one? It's the 7th one this week. Emmy chuckled as she signed the notebook regardless. At this rate, your notebook will be filled with nothing but my autographs. Sorry, I just can't help it. Midoriya said as he happily closed the notebook. It's hard to believe there's a pro hero at my house. I've been coming here for months, Izuku. And you know my name too? Don't mind him, Mom, he acts like this with all pro heroes, Shiratoko laughed. Anyway, why did you decide to pay Mrs. Midoriya a visit? Emi winked at Mrs. Midoriya. What? Can't an old colleague pay a visit to one of her kohai? If by paying a visit you mean tease and pester, then yeah, the woman said as she sat down. But I think what they want to know is why you're here as Ragamuffin, and not as Mrs. Joke. Oh, well, I realized my little baby's middle school graduation is coming up, and that's something I can't miss no matter what. So I asked my coworkers for a short break, and they agreed, so long as I helped them with their current mission. So I helped them, and as soon as the mission was over, I was zooming past the ocean straight to here. Mrs. Midoriya raised an amused eyebrow. Okay, I didn't cross the ocean, but I did come here running on all fours. Emi rested her chin on her palm. So, how did your day go, kids? Shiratoko eyed Midoriya, and gestured him to explain. Well, we were asked what high schools and universities we were planning to go to once we got through middle school. And nearly everyone said they wanted to go to UA University dash. Ah yes, UA, the alma mater of my ex-husband, Aizawa. Emi blushed and played with her hair. Sometimes I wonder if he stays awake at night, waiting for me to run to his arms once more. He doesn't love you, Mrs. Midoriya bluntly stated. Emi simply laughed out loud at the blunt statement. So, everyone said they wanted to go to UA, Mrs. Midoriya remarked, turning her attention to the kids. Does that include you too? Shiratoko and Midoriya exchanged looks before nodding in unison. I say go for it. Emi flashed a thumbs up. I'm sure you'll get in no problem. I don't know, UA is the most prestigious university in Japan. Thousands of young adults apply each year, and only about 50 or something tend to make the cut. Mrs. Midoriya twiddled her fingers. Are you sure you don't want to suggest somewhere else? Like your own alma mater, Ketsubutsu? Inko, these are our kids we're talking about. With Tomoko's search and Izuku's Invisibomb, they'll be unstoppable. Midoriya really wished he had thought of a better name for his quirk. I'm still not convinced, Mrs. Midoriya folded her arms. I mean, they could train and such, but dash. Oh come on, Inko, don't be so negative. Emi grabbed the kids and brought them up to her sides. Look at their hopeful little faces. You can't crush their hopes and dreams again, can you? Mrs. Midoriya winced. Ugh, alright, I see your point. But I still suggest you two should look for other options. Yay. Thanks, Inko, you're the best. Emi chirped, hugging the children close to her. Now, what's for lunch? Katsudon. Once lunch was over, Shiratoko and Midoriya rested on the latter's bedroom. The former was playing with a pair of All Might figurines, while the latter was working on some kind of list. Ketsubutsu is a university, right? Yeah, Shiratoko raised an eyebrow. Why? Midoriya scratched his head. I want to make a list of potential universities we could go to. Shiratoko immediately stood up after that. Midoriya, you're not getting second thoughts about going to UA, are you? The boy lowered his list and looked elsewhere. Well, you know, Bakugo's planning to go there, and dash. That's not an excuse, Midoriya, in fact, it's a reason we should do it. Shiratoko clenched her fists and raised them with a smile. We should apply for UA and get in just so we can laugh in Bakugo's face. Midoriya scratched his chin. While I like the idea of doing that, Mom said how only very few people enter each year, and I know firsthand what a bad idea it is to get Bakugo mad. I don't see why we can't see other universities. I'm not saying we don't try to enter other universities, let's just make entering UA into our main priority. And if that goes bust, we'll try somewhere else. Shiratoko folded her arms behind her back. Besides, you have something Bakugo will never have. Midoriya raised an eyebrow. And that is? Shiratoko leaned closer until she was right in front of Midoriya's face. Me. It took Midoriya a moment to realize what the girl was implying. And once he did, his face became as red as a tomato. Right. You're absolutely right. Of course I am. Shiratoko backed away. Besides, Mom's right, our quirks have such great synergy that together, we'll be unstoppable. Or at least, really hard to stop. Why yeah, Midoriya scratched his chin. That's true too. So, wanna head for UA? Midoriya looked back at Shiratoko, who had her arm extended forward. Sure. Promise it to me, then. Shiratoko stated, barely containing her excitement. Promise me we'll both apply to and enter UA. It was times like these, where Shiratoko was clearly barely containing her excitement, that brought a smile to Midoriya's face. Sure, it's a promise. Midoriya and Shiratoko shook hands. Yay! Now, what do we call it? What do we call what? Our hero group, of course. We can't just go around as Shiratoko and Midoriya. We need something snazzy, something unique. Midoriya hummed. She's right, but what can we call our group? I'm a guy whose quirk can help us hide, while Shiratoko's quirk lets her search, or seek, up to 100 people from a long distance. Midoriya and Shiratoko got an idea at the same time. Hide and seek. 3 years had passed since Midoriya and Shiratoko's middle school graduation. They went their separate ways for high school, so today, the day of the entrance exam to UA, would be the first time the childhood friends would meet again. Midoriya checked his watch as he leaned against the side of the entrance to the massive UA building. Young men and women walked in, excited to test their potential, and hopefully enter the most prestigious school in all of Japan. A school that, as rumors mentioned, served as the alma mater of some of the most popular pro heroes in the country. The best thing about UA, however, was the fact that there was a specific entrance exam for all types of heroes. If you wanted to be an action hero, your entrance exam would involve beating up as many robots as possible. If you wanted to be a rescue hero, your entrance exam would involve solving a hostage situation. If you wanted to be an underground hero, your entrance exam would involve trying to enter or leave a building without being spotted. Finally, if you wanted to be a support hero, your entrance exam would involve either helping a visiting pro hero complete a mock version of their day-to-day job, or if your quirk was more along the lines of medicine, complete a mock-up medical exam. The thousands of applicants each year were divided into these 4 exams, and from those thousands, only the top 10 of each exam would be allowed to enter the hero course. Obviously, Midoriya picked the underground entrance exam. There was no way he wouldn't pick the option that would let him avoid unwanted attention. Izuku. The familiar voice of Shiratoko brought a smile to Midoriya's face, and the guy looked away from his watch and turned to where he heard the voice. Shiratoko dash. Midoriya was stunned at what he saw. Shiratoko was definitely no longer the little girl he used to hang out with. She was now only slightly shorter than him, her head landing at his shoulders, and her womanly attributes had received a little upgrade. Not as big as some of the female pro heroes he's seen around, but she definitely had notable curves. What caught his attention the most, however, was the feline tail poking out of her skirt and waggling cheerfully. Guess her hair color and cheerfulness wasn't the only thing she got from her mother. It's been so long since I last saw you, Izuku. Shiratoko chirped once she was close enough to the guy. How have you been? You're so much bigger than I remember. I'm fine, Shiratoko dash. Cut that out. Shiratoko narrowed her eyes. Call me Tomoko. Tuemoko. Midoriya flinched. Where did this request come from? Izuku, we've been friends since you saved me from Bakugo at the park all those years ago. We spent elementary and middle school together. Shiratoko leaned in and whispered to his ear, I was even there to witness your first kiss. The guy took a step back as his face turned as red as a tomato. Great, looks like she also got her mother's teasing nature. And meeting you again after so long, I want things to get a bit more personal between us. Shiratoko leaned back. So, since I'm calling you by your first name, I want you to do the same with me. Midoriya couldn't argue with Shiratoko's argument. After all, she did call him Izuku all the way through middle school, though he felt that was more her trying to correct Bakugo's constant Deku rather than doing it because she wanted to. Regardless, she called him by his first name regardless, so he should do the same. I'm fine. Tomoko. The shorter brunette blushed and flashed a cat smile as her tail sprung up. Yay! Finally. Next thing he knew, Midoriya was being hugged by Shiratoko, with 2 big, notably soft things pushing against his stomach. Having those 2 things made it so much different from when she hugged him back then. Oh, right, I almost forgot. Shiratoko separated from Midoriya, who clutched his chest as he caught his breath. What exam are you taking? I am taking the underground hero exam. I'm gonna take the rescue exam. Shiratoko chirped. Although, now that I think about it, if we take separate exams, we won't be able to show the great synergy our quirks have. I don't think it really matters if we take the same exam or not. If we land among the top 10, we'll get in, Midoriya argued, before he flashed a teasing smile. Now, if we do end up in different classes, that would definitely make things difficult. Izuku Midoriya, are you teasing me? Shiratoko asked, earning a nod from the boy. I'm so proud of you. The duo laughed for a bit before the girl extended her hand forward. So, shall we get going? Midoriya nodded and grabbed her hand. Yes, let's go. And so, hide and seek walked into the building, ready to take the exams that would decide whether they were in or out. Midoriya stretched as he reached a spot in the large area. He was currently in a mock-up version of an abandoned warehouse, with the rest of the applicants getting into their positions as they took advantage of the fact the main obstacle of the test had yet to activate. This obstacle was a group of robots dressed as cops with flashlights and, going by the shape of their eyes, those would also show a light that, as soon as it spotted one of the applicants, would alert the other copbots, disqualifying them. Are you nervous? Midoriya flinched and scanned his surroundings for whoever said that. Only to find nobody. I'm down here. The guy looked down, and saw a young woman crouching down like a frog. Actually, that wasn't the only frog-like thing about her. Her eyes were large and unblinking, her mouth was seemingly permanently put in a neutral expression, and her legs and hands seemed bigger than the average hand size for a woman. And once again, the fact she had a tail caught his attention the most. I'm a little nervous too, the girl spoke, returning the guy to reality. But we're too far into this to just back down now. We'll just have to grin and bear it. Frogs don't have tails, Midoriya thoughtlessly blurted. By the time he covered his mouth, the girl was already replying to his comment. Technically, they do have them while they're tadpoles, but those are absorbed back into the frog when it reaches its mature state. However, if you're curious, the tail's a mutation separate from my quirk. That's actually very interesting. Midoriya extended his hand forward. Oh, my name's Izuku Midoriya, by the way. The girl smiled and shook his hand. I'm Tsuyu Azui. But please, call me Tsu. Alright then. Tsu, Midoriya scratched his head. Hey, when this is over, would you mind telling me more about your quirk? I don't see why not. Sure. And start. As soon as those words were heard, Tsuyu charged and took a leap straight for the ceiling, with Midoriya still holding her hand. Oops, sorry. Tsuyu released the guy, and he fell on face first on the ground with a loud thud, almost alerting the copbots of his presence before he hid behind a crate. As he hid, he looked up to see Tsuyu clinging to the wall and slowly making her way towards the exit. Guess he knew who was gonna be number one this exam. I have to catch up. Midoriya generated a small sphere and threw it on the ground, causing it to explode into a lime-green smoke cloud. Once the cloud dispersed, Midoriya saw the world gain a familiar tint of green, and he quickly began to move around the mock-up warehouse. Okay, I need to be wary not to touch anything that could make a lot of noise. My normal footsteps won't be heard by normal ears, but those with enhanced senses will still be able to hear me. Just then, Midoriya hid behind a crate and took a peek of the copbots guarding the entrance. These robots feel different from the other ones. While I can't jump the gun, I can't throw away the idea that they could have greater hearing capabilities than the other copbots, so I need to be quick and careful about this. Then, he looked up to see something quite unusual. Tsuyu hopped, but instead of falling to the ground, she spread her arms, revealing wing-like membria that allowed her to glide straight to the exit. Once she crossed, the exit made a ding sound, alerting the copbots for a second before they turned back to guard the exit. So cool. And then a loud, hellish screech caught the guy's attention. He turned to the guarding copbots, and saw them grab and apprehend what seemed like a bunch of nothing, only for the nothing to struggle, with clearly feminine grunts. That girl was invisible, and they still caught her. That proves they do have better hearing and sight than the other copbots. Now I definitely need to be careful. It took him a second to recognize what he said. Wait, that girl was naked? Midoriya shook his head. Now was not the time to wonder how far some people would go to use their quirks to their full potential. Now was the time to pass the entrance exam. Too bad his quirk disagreed, rendering him visible once more just as he took a step. This caught the copbots' attention, but since Midoriya was out of sight, they quickly lost interest. Midoriya created another lime green bomb, and paused to try and think of a plan. Walking up to the exit would not do, and if he tried taking a peek, the copbots would immediately spot him and fail him. That, as well as the fact they seemed to have instant reflexes, meant that he'd need to be quick in order to avoid being spotted. So, he needed to make a distraction. Midoriya spotted a fellow applicant running across the area, and got an idea. He threw the lime green bomb at them, successfully hitting them. Now he just needed to wait for the smoke cloud to vanish and for them to catch the copbots' attention. Only, once the cloud dispersed, the person was still there, but in varying shades of green. Ugh, what happened? They asked, before freaking out. Where's everything? Their freak out was loud enough to get the guarding copbots' attention, and as they slid, Midoriya took the chance to make a beeline for the exit, with it doing the ding noise once he passed. He felt terrible about the fact he needed to do something so dirty to pass the entrance exam, but he couldn't think of another way to do it. Of course, he also didn't expect the bomb to make the person into a bunch of green and seemingly make them panic. They said something about everything just being gone, right? Was that something else my quirk can do? Shiratoko stood among the other applicants of the Rescue Hero exam as they waited for everything to be set up. From where she stood, she could see robots walking around the area setting up about 10 practice dummies to serve as the equivalent to civilians in danger. So, there would definitely only be a top 10 in this exam. More motivation for her to do her best. As for the area they were in, the best way to describe it was a clusterquark of disaster areas, with the only real theme to them being dummies in danger. Shiratoko stretched a bit, and got in position. Only to wince when she felt her tail being grabbed. By reflex, she hissed and swung her hands towards the offending person. She stopped as soon as she saw a guy blocking her slashes with his arms. "Whoa, sorry," the guy cried as he backed away. "I was just wondering if that was an actual tail." "Well, yeah, it is, and you could have just asked me about it," Shiratoko argued, pulling her tail back. "Why wouldn't you think it was real? Mutations that aren't part of a mutant quirk are actually pretty rare nowadays," the guy explained, raising his arms defensively. "So, whenever I see something that might look like a mutation, I'm compelled to check whether it's real or not." "Is that true?" Shiratoko grabbed her tail and eyed it with confusion. "But, my mom has a tail. And I think my grandmother had one too." "Well, it's easier to inherit mutations when the whole family seems to have a mutant gene somewhere, so, I guess that doesn't help my case, huh?" The guy chuckled, then extended his hand. "Anyway, name's Hantashiro, sorry for the awful first impression." "I wouldn't say it was awful, just really unexpected," Shiratoko shook his hands. "And I'm Tomoko Shiratoko. Nice to meet you." "Okay, now that we got introductions out of the way, I'm gonna go to my spot," Shiro replied. "I'll see if I can get a good look at where some of the dummies are located." Shiratoko nodded and waved goodbye as the guy left, flashing a sly smirk once as she clasped her hands. She was quite lucky there was no indication of when she was tagging someone, otherwise, she might have had to explain some things. And start. Shiratoko activated her quirk and ran after the spot where Shiro stood. He was being some mock-up rubble in a rocky area, with at least 2 dummies located. Just what she needed. Shiratoko kept hiding, covering her presence from Shiro as much as she could as she followed him. Doing this allowed her to see him use his quirk in action, his elbows, which she was baffled to realize she didn't notice they were shaped like tape dispensers, shot something tape-like that he used to grab over to some ledges and swing around like a monkey. This allowed him to reach the spot with ease and grab one of the dummies before he swung to the exit. Shiratoko soon followed suit by leaping straight for the platform, grabbing the remaining dummy, and jumping away just as the platform collapsed. She slid down the rocky area, which led her straight to the exit. With that done, she ran on all 4 through it, and dropped the dummy right next to Shiro's dummy, securing her victory. "Woohoo! I got it," she chirped. "Oh hey, you got through it too," Shiro remarked once he spotted the girl. "Where did you get the dummy?" Shiratoko rolled her eyes. "Well, a certain tape-shooting bird might have helped me a little there." Shiro raised an eyebrow. "It's thanks to my quirk, search," Shiratoko explained with a little smile. "As soon as we shook hands, I tagged you, and as long as I don't undo the tagging, I can know where you are from a radius of 5 apples, as well as your strengths and weaknesses. And you used it in order to follow me and have an easy way to get one of the dummies," Shiro flashed an amused smile. "Clever girl." Shiratoko giggled and blushed at the compliment, but she stopped laughing as soon as something else caught her mind, a white-haired, at least, it looked white-haired to her, girl, checking on a chart with a dummy resting on her leg. "Who's that girl?" Shiratoko asked. "When did she get here?" "Oh, that's Kashiko Sekigai, she was the first one to actually pass the entrance exam," Shiro explained casually. "I think she's from some all-female high school where she was the top student, both for her intelligence and her quirk." Shiratoko raised an eyebrow. "I'm assuming the chart she's using right now is her quirk?" "Can't say, I've only heard about her from some of my former classmates," Shiro scratched his head. "One thing's for sure, though, she passed the exam, so I'm kinda worried to have her as a classmate." Just then, the girl caught a glance at Shiratoko staring at her, and the cat girl flinched before she waved her hand with a sheepish smile. Sekigai stared at her for a minute before she turned to her chart, scanned Shiratoko with it, and read the information she got. Whatever she read must have angered her, since she narrowed her eyes and glared at Shiratoko before she turned off her chart, and walked away. "Was it something I did?" "She scanned you with her chart, and that's what made her angry," Shiro explained, scratching his head. "If my instincts aren't lying to me, I'd say you just got yourself a rival." And as Shiratoko watched Sekigai leave, the greenette lowered her eyelids and thought with intrigue. "A rival, huh?" A week had passed since the UA entrance exam. Every other university began their entrance exams at least 2 weeks after UA the earliest, so Midoriya and Shiratoko still had some time to be accepted. Didn't stop Midoriya from pacing back and forth with concern. "Izuku, calm down," Inko requested while working on lunch. "UA has over 1,000 applicants each year, I'm sure they're going to decide if you're in or not eventually." "That's not the problem, Mom, the problem's that. See, I made a promise with Shiratoko Yeah, she told me about it several years ago, Inko nonchalantly confessed, causing Midoriya to wince. Now that he remembered, Shiratoko was never one who could keep her mouth shut about these things. You two promised that you would go to UA and graduate as heroes, didn't you? Yes, and if I don't get in, then that obviously destroys the promise. Midoriya lowered his head and frowned. And I don't even want to think how she's going to react to this. You don't have to, she's coming for lunch. Midoriya's jaw dropped and he slowly turned to his mother with a horrified expression, the woman being just as nonchalant as she kept working on the food. Shortly after, somebody knocked the door, prompting the guy to go answer. As soon as he opened the door, however, Shiratoko and Emi glommed him. Izuku, they shouted in unison. Shiratoko. Mrs. Joke. Midoriya exclaimed, his voice muffled by the pair of soft things on his face. I didn't think you were going to come so early. Or today. Shiratoko pouted and leaned back. You called me Shiratoko again. Emi leaned back soon after. My little kitty here told me you started calling her by her first name, Izuku. And we both know she wouldn't lie to her mother. Really? Izuku called Tomoko by her first name? Inko asked, gaining a little smile. He never told me about this. Because it's not something I can just tell you, Mom. Midoriya said as he backed away from the well-endowed cat women. Besides, I'm not comfortable doing it while other people are watching. Well, just don't think that Inko and I are here, Emi cooed as she put her hands on Shiratoko's shoulders and rested her chin on her left shoulder. And call Tomoko by her first name. You can do it, Izuku. Shiratoko chirped. Midoriya blushed and twiddled his fingers as everywhere he looked, he got the same approving look tempting him to do the thing. Shiratoko's wide smile was the last thing he saw before he closed his eyes. Took a deep breath, and murmured. Tomoko. I didn't hear anything, did you hear anything? Emi asked her daughter, who shook her head. I think you need to be a little louder, Izuku. Tomoko. Haha, there it is. Emi giggled as Shiratoko clasped her hands in joy. Our little babies are growing closer than ever, Inko. They'll be husband and wife before you know it. Sure they will, Emi. And they're gonna have a big litter of kittens. Sure they will, Emi. Anyhow, we didn't come here just to tease Izuku about his and Tomoko's developing relationship, Emi remarked, releasing her daughter. We just got news from UA about Tomoko's results. Oh really? Midoriya turned to the younger cat girl. Did you get in? Shiratoko's smile slowly but surely grew until it was ear to ear, barely taking a second before she glomped Midoriya once again, who joined in her joyous laughter. I'm so happy for you, Tomoko. Midoriya exclaimed as he wrapped the cat girl in a hug. What was your ranking? Well, I was around 7th or 6th, I think, Shiratoko frowned. I do know who was first, though, but I'd rather not talk about that. And wait a minute, Izuku, did you just call her Tomoko without stuttering? Inko pointed out. Izuku released Shiratoko and blushed. I was caught up in the moment. Sure you were, Emi shook her head with a teasing smile. Anyway, what about you, Izuku? Did you get in? He still hasn't gotten his acceptance letter, Inko revealed. And the other entrance exams are a week away, so he's starting to worry that if he didn't pass, he may need to prepare for another universities. Well, if that happens, Shiratoko grimaced once she thought abo it. Actually, crap, I didn't think of a backup plan in case you didn't get in, Izuku. Because you don't need to, Emi stated, wrapping her arms around her daughter and Midoriya's shoulders. You and Izuku are going to be heroes together, and if UA's going to stop that, I'll just have to sue them. I'm no longer a lawyer, remember, Emi? Inko pointed out. I'll just have to find a lawyer then. I heard Mirko's a pretty good one dash. Knock knock knock. DLVRY for Izuku Midoriya. The oddly dry DLVRY of the statement caused everyone to turn to the door. And, without being prompted or anything, Emi slowly stalked towards the door on all fours, reaching for the doorknob once she was close enough. As soon as she opened the door, she lunged forward, pining the man to the ground. And recognizing him soon afterwards. Eraserhead. The shaggy man rolled his eyes. Great, just the woman I wanted to see. Emi, who is it? Inko asked from inside. The Catwoman hero helped Eraserhead stand up, dusted him, and then dragged him into the house as she chirped, everybody, meet Eraserhead. He's the boyfriend I've been telling you about for a while. I'm not your boyfriend, I'm just a victim of circumstances, Eraserhead sternly explained. Anyway, I came here to deliver something to Izuku Midoriya, and I'm dead tired. Where's the boy? Midoriya hesitantly raised his hand, and Eraserhead threw a letter at it. With his job done, the man left the house. There you go, it's your results on the entrance exam of UA. Thank you for participating, we're glad to have you here, blah blah blah, I'm going home now. I could come with you if you want. Emi blurted with a flirty tone. The door was slammed shut. Guess that's a no, Inko remarked. What does the letter say, Izuku? Midoriya already had an idea of what it could possibly be about, mostly due to what Eraserhead said in his hastily said speech. Regardless, he opened the letter, read it to himself. And his eyes widened with pure delight. I'm in. The girl smiled, with Shiratoko sharing Midoriya's hopeful eyes as he repeated. I'm in. Shiratoko and Midoriya perked up together and hugged each other, laughing as their mothers exchanged proud looks. What class are you in? The cat girl asked. Class 1A, he answered cheerfully. No way. I'm in that class too. See? It seems even the universe wants you two to become heroes together. Emi remarked. We can shelve suing UA, then. Still, I wonder, Inko looked at the ceiling. Who else could have ended in that class 1A? Here's your coffee. Kashiko Sekigai served a cup of coffee to a young woman with raven hair tied in a ponytail, with one long bang to her side. She was wearing an apron over normal clothing, while the other girl was wearing a black suit. Thanks, Kashiko, your coffee's the best, the woman answered as she sipped her coffee. No problem, Momo, or should I say, Miss Yayorozu. Sekigai answered. The woman, Yayorozu, groaned. Just Momo, please. Yayorozu implies formality that I don't want to deal with right now. Seriously, I just had to spend hours on a meeting to secure a merging with another company, and I'm gonna need to head to another meeting in an hour. I don't even know what we'll be talking about. Sounds rough, Sekigai sighed. But hey, at least you passed the support exam for UA. I'm just glad I'll have the option to do something else. Yayorozu sipped her coffee again. Seriously, if I have to talk about the cons and pros of a merging again, I'm gonna go nuts. Sekigai nodded and began working on other coffee orders, though her body language quickly caught Yayorozu's attention. You seem upset about something, Kashiko. Would it help you to talk about it? I took the rescue portion of the entrance exam, and passed in first place, which shouldn't surprise you. Sekigai lowered her eyelids. However, when I finished, I met another girl and scanned her. And when I got to her quirk, I began to worry. And why's that? Her quirk is similar to mine. She can tag people and keep track of them for over a 5-apple radius, and know all about their location, strengths, and weaknesses. My quirk is the same, only replace tagging with scanning. And you're worried that there being a quirk similar to yours is going to make it harder for you to stand out? Especially if this girl begins doing better than me. What if she ends up becoming so much better than me that people start thinking I'm redundant? I can't let that happen. Not when I've come so far. Yayorozu hummed and finished her coffee. Well, Kashiko, from what I can gather, you're looking at a potential rivalry with this girl. Sekigai finished serving another cup of coffee, and as she served it to another customer, she gave some thought to Yayorozu's words. A rival, huh? After getting dressed in decent clothing and taking the train, Midoriya and Shiratoko found themselves in front of the UA building. The university didn't come with a dorm system, so they'd have to go there and back to their houses like in high school. Only this time, every time they went in and out, they'd have gained experience on being heroes. Well, today's our first day at UA, Midoriya remarked before he turned to his companion. Are you excited? Beyond excited. Also kinda worried, but mostly excited. Shiratoko chirped, waggling her tail left and right. What about you? I saw you fidgeting at the train, so I can only guess you must be super anxious, right? Midoriya smiled sheepishly and scratched the back of his head. You know me too well, Shire Dash. Shiratoko slapped Midoriya. I mean, Tomoko. That's more like it, Shiratoko rubbed the boy's cheek. Sorry for the slap. I didn't hit you too hard, did I? Nah, it wasn't that bad, Midoriya rubbed his cheek and sighed. I definitely prefer to be slapped by you than by the ground. Midoriya? The green duet turned around, and they saw another greenette in the vicinity, Tsuyu Azui, who held a neutral expression as she walked towards the pair. It was a bit weird for Midoriya to see her walk normally when last time they met she was hopping around, but hey, who was he to complain? Right, now I remember, you passed the test too, the boy flashed a thumbs up. Guess what? I did too. I'm glad to hear you passed the test, Tsuyu said with a little smile. I hope we get along for the next 4 years. Izuku, who's this girl? Shiratoko bluntly asked. Oh, right, I didn't tell you about her, sorry, Midoriya scratched the back of his head. Sure I mean, Titomoko, this is Tsuyu Azui. I met her during the underground entrance exam, and in fact, she was the first one to pass it. It's a pleasure to meet a friend of Midoriya, Tsuyu bowed down before she turned back to the guy. And Midoriya, I told you to call me Tsu. Shiratoko raised an eyebrow. It's what my friends call me. Oh, I see. Shiratoko turned to Midoriya and folded her arms. Well, you weren't the only one who met new people at the entrance exam. Of course, I'm not exactly sure if they're even in the same class as me. In fact, what class are you in? 1B. Ah man, Midoriya frowned. I'm in 1A. And so am I. Shiratoko victoriously proclaimed, wrapping her arm around Midoriya's shoulder. Seems like the universe really does want us to be together, huh, Izuku? Yo, Shiratoko. The cat girl's tail shot up, and she looked in front of her to see Hantashiro approaching the group. Fancy seeing you out here. I thought you'd already have headed inside, the tape guy remarked before he scanned the scene, his smile turning nervous. Did I arrive at a bad moment? Izuku, this is Hantashiro. Shiratoko said, giving the guy a high five. He was the guy I met during the rescue exam. Which he passed, so I'm curious what class he's in. 1B, Shiro answered with slight disappointment. Hey, so am I, Tsuyu remarked with a little smile. Isn't that a coincidence? The universe puts me and Izuku together, and it put you two in the sister class. Shiratoko wrapped her arm around Midoriya's shoulder and leaned forward, making sure a pair of certain friends of her pressed against his shoulder. I think the universe is making its intentions very clear, Izuku. PP perhaps, Midoriya stammered, blushing as he avoided eye contact. B but let's not forget, J just because we're in different classes, D doesn't mean we can't be friends. If anything, it's a reason to become friends, Shiro remarked, Tsuyu nodding in agreement. Since we already know each other, we could kickstart the relationship between both classes and make a network to help each other. That's an interesting way to look at it. The group turned around, and they saw Kashiko Sekigai approaching them, with her friend, Momo Yaoyorozu, by her side. While Midoriya, Shiro, and Tsuyu remained neutral at the approach, Shiratoko backed away and subtly growled. Hi. Shiro greeted, shaking hands with the girl. I'm Hantashiro. Tsuyu Azui. But please, call me Tsu. Kashiko Sekigai, and this is my best friend, Momo Yaoyorozu. Sekigai bowed down and curtsied. I hope we get along. I hope we get along too, Midoriya said as he shook hands with Sekigai. He awkwardly stopped once he noticed Shiratoko glaring at him, and with that done, Sekigai smiled and turned her attention to the cat girl. Well, if it isn't Tomoko Shiratoko. It's a pleasure to see you again. Shiratoko jumped back. How do you know my name? Sekigai summoned her chart. My Quirk chart allows me to identify a person's name, quirk, strengths, and weaknesses with a simply scan. Hey, isn't that kinda like your quirk? Shiro blurted. No it's not. Shiratoko snapped before pointing at Sekigai. And you? Whatever's going on with you, I don't want to get into any trouble, so why don't you explain that look you gave me at the entrance exam? Well, I'd be happy to tell you, if you were a bit more polite, Sekigai responded sternly. But since you're being quite rude, and to a recommendation student as well, I think this is where this conversation ends. With that, Sekigai saved her chart and walked away, leaving Yaoyorozu behind to bow and apologize. I'm sorry for that, she's a bit prideful. Yaoyorozu, follow me. Coming. The raven-haired girl ran after Sekigai, and the quartet decided to go inside as well. After all, classes were going to start pretty soon. So, what's the deal with the recommended student comment? Shiratoko asked as she and the group walked through the hallways. UA was originally a high school that had two entrance exams, a normal one where 36 people would get in, and a recommendation one where only 4 would get in, Midoriya explained. However, once it upgraded into a university and got more funding, entrance exams for the most known types of heroes were made, and in turn, only the top 10 of each exam would get in, the one landing in first place becoming a recommendation student. Of course, there are times when other participants impress the judges so much, they get recommended instead, Tsuyu added. Most of the time, though, the recommended students are those who got first place. Alright, if I'm getting this right, then there are 4 recommendation students and 36 people like before, Shiratoko folded her arms. And we know Azui dash. Call me Tsu. Sorry, Tsu and Sekigai are both recommendation students, one in 1B and one in 1A. But who are the remaining recommendation students? Midoriya, Shiratoko, Shiro, and Tsuyu separated at the doors to their classrooms, and Midoriya and Shiratoko entered their classroom. Guess we'll find out later. And so, the duo took a moment to scan their surroundings. The classroom was fairly mundane, holding 10 desks for the students to sit on, a blackboard, a couple windows, pretty much anything you'd expect from a normal university classroom. The only thing that was different was that some of their classmates had already arrived, most notably Sekigai, who was trying desperately to ignore an arrogant explosive blonde's comments. And so, I'm gonna graduate from this university as a hero, and become the #1 hero no matter what anybody says. After all, I got the perfect quirk to destroy all of crime in the city. So, still think you're hot sheet, recommended extra? I think I could scan your chances to become a hero with my chart, and I'm almost certain the results of such a question would be rock bottom. Sekigai growled. What the hell's that supposed to mean? You wanna fight? I would, if it wasn't such a waste of my time. No way. Shiratoko and Midoriya grimaced. The explosive blonde turned around, revealing himself to be Katsuki Bakugo. It took him a moment to recognize Midoriya and Shiratoko, but once he did, his expression narrowed. Well, if it isn't Deku and his little pages. Midoriya and Shiratoko narrowed their eyes in unison. Bakugo. Back where we left off, Bakugo smirked at the duo as he left Sekigai alone to her silent gratitude and walked towards them, hands pocketed. Well, we meet again, he scoffed. So, you decided to head for UA2 anyway, despite knowing I was going to get here regardless. Do you know this guy? Sekigai asked. He's been bothering me for the past minutes talking about how he's hot sheet. Because I really am hot sheet. Bakugo snapped at Sekigai. Smartest in my class, a strong quirk, unbreakable determination, seriously, it'd be weirder if I wasn't hero material dash. You're not. Bakugo and Sekigai turned around to see the one who said that, Midoriya, who was throwing a disapproving look at the guy. And just what the hell is that supposed to mean, Deku? Bakugo asked, narrowing his eyes. Are you saying you'd be a better hero than me? I'm saying anybody would be a better hero than you. Midoriya snapped. What's the point of having a strong quirk if you only use it to intimidate? What's the point of having a smart mind if you only use it to find ways to feed your own ego? And about you being the smartest in your class? That's not a big achievement considering the rest of our classmates and even the teachers were idiots. Shiratoko smiled. She never thought she'd see this side of Midoriya at all, but she certainly wasn't minding it. You've certainly become more ballsy over the years, Deku. Bakugo folded his arms. Calling our classmates and teachers idiots just because everyone thought you were quirkless dash. And you haven't changed from the same ignorant piece of trash you used to be. Midoriya folded his arms in return. Correction, the piece of trash you are. What did you say dash? No fighting in the classroom. Everybody turned around and saw a large caterpillar sleeping back crawl into the room and to the teacher's desk, before standing up to reveal a normal guy's face where its mouth would be. Luckily, things made more sense once the sleeping bag opened up, and out came a shaggy man dressed in black clothing. Good morning, class. I'm Aizawa, otherwise known as the underground hero, Eraserhead. I'll serve as your main teacher for these next 4 years. Suddenly, the man glared with red, glowing eyes. So if you know what's good for you, I expect you to behave yourselves, got it? Why yes sir, the entire class said in unison. The man's eyes stopped glowing and he calmed down. Good, now, let's not waste any more time and get this over with. Everybody to your seats, I'll take assistance. Midoriya and Shiratoko sat down as Eraserhead called their names, causing them to say, present, soon after. He called Bakugo and Sekigai next, who said the same thing, but Bakugo was obviously much more rude about it. After that came names neither of them had heard before. Some, like Hato, were famous enough that they could recognize the young adults with those names, but others like Toga and Dabi were a complete mystery. After that was a simple DLVRY of the class schedule, and then an order for everyone to head to the backyard of the university. Why? We're gonna have a quirk demonstration test, is what Eraserhead told his students. In this test, you're gonna show a brief showcase of your quirks, and then you'll have randomly selected one-on-one matches in order to see how well you can use it in combat. After that, we'll call it a day. Eraserhead? Sekigai asked, raising her arm. Not all of us have quirks that are combat-oriented, how are we supposed to do this test? If your quirk can't help you in a fight, then use your fists and ingenuity. Not having a quirk made for combat is no excuse to be completely defenseless. Eraserhead narrowed his eyes and took out a timer. Now, if nobody else has any stupid questions, I'd like to get this over with quickly. And so, the quirk demonstration test began, and Midoriya made sure to take note of the quirks of those that came before him. There was a really potent pyrokinetic quirk that could hurt its user if used too much, a quirk that allowed its user to transform into another person by ingesting their blood, and another that allowed their user to convert their vitality whatever that meant into energy blasts. And so came more interesting quirks, shadow creatures, turning into a giant, and so on. And of course he already knew what was up with Shiratoko and Bakugo's quirk. That still didn't stop Midoriya from cursing himself for not bringing his notebook and pen. Midoriya, it's your turn. The boy flinched, and as he walked to the center of the backyard, he could feel everyone staring at him with anticipation. Though oddly enough, outside of Bakugo, most of the stares didn't feel malicious, but rather curious. "Oh, okay. I am Izuku Midoriya," the boy stammered before he created a green bomb. "My quirk, Invisibomb, allows me to create a small lime green bomb that, once it blows up, turns me and those around me invisible for about 10 seconds. Midoriya promptly demonstrated his quirk's power by slamming the bomb on the ground, and the entire world around him turning green once it dissipated. Of course, this meant that nobody else could see him for as long as the world turned back to normal. "What? Interesting quirk, Midoriya, but we don't have all day," Eraserhead stated, his eyes glowing red for the briefest moment that Midoriya glanced at him. "Now, with all your quirks demonstrated, it's time for the random matchups." Midoriya took this as the time for him to go back to his peers, and so he did, with everybody staring at him as Eraserhead began making the random matchups. And he would be lying if he wasn't dreading the incoming storm of, "Your quirk's so cool. Compliments? It's an interesting quirk. Perfect for stealth. Do you think we could combine our quirks one day? Imagine entering the wrong bathroom and using your quirk to escape." The last one almost got a laugh out of Midoriya before Shiratoko stood in front of him and snapped, "Okay, give the guy some space. He doesn't like the limelight, nor unwanted attention." "Note that unwanted attention goes both ways," Bakugo scoffed. "After all, who would want to focus on something as lame as blowing yourself up?" "Doesn't your quirk do the same?" Shiratoko asked. "No, it doesn't." Bakugo folded his arms. "My quirk lets me blow up my enemies, it doesn't blow myself up." "Yeah, but it lacks cooperativeness," one of the students spoke. "At least Midoriya's quirk can work with multiple people." "What did you say?" "Not to mention you'd SEK at stealth, make one explosion, and you've already been caught. And you're too noisy, my ears are still ringing. And your attitude's sheet. That has nothing to do with my quirk." Bakugo snapped finally. "It's still true, though." "Okay, stop blabbering with yourselves," Eraserhead stated, getting everyone's attention as he took out a box. "I've already made all the matches, so grab the papers and see if you get your match." All this told Midoriya was that Eraserhead was too lazy to give everybody a proper enemy, but regardless, they all grabbed some papers, and those that got the wrong match gave the paper to the proper fighters. Sadly, against all odds, Midoriya was pitted against Bakugo. And he barely got time to strategize before the fights actually began. The only fights that mattered to him right now, however, were his own, and Shiratoko, which was with Sekigai. However, since neither girl had quirks made for combat, the match was effectively quirkless, and over in a flash. With Shiratoki standing on top at the end. As for the rest of the matches, they were all clearly biased on one side rather than the other, and they barely lasted a couple of seconds. All Midoriya could hope right now was that his fight lasted a little longer. "Izuku Midoriya, Katsuki Bakugo, your turn." The guys walked to the arena, and as Midoriya went to one end of the area, Bakugo opened his palms and scoffed. "Everyone might have praised your quirk before, but that will soon end once they see how crappy it really is. Begin." Bakugo propelled himself forward with his explosions and Midoriya, not having many choices for combat, created an energy bomb, and shot it right at Bakugo, hitting him just as Midoriya jumped out of the way of the blast. Once the ensuing smoke cloud dissipated, however, something about Bakugo had changed and caught everyone's attention, including Midoriya's. He was now all shades of green, and he was looking around the place as if he had no idea where he was. "What the F is going on?" he yelled. "What did you FING do, Deku?" "That's what I'd like to know." Midoriya replied. I think that was another thing my quirk can do." "FING bullshit." "Legitimate bullshit, actually," Eraserhead sighed. "And since you got out of boundaries, that makes Midoriya the winner by default." "No. That can't be it." Bakugo yelled as he turned back to normal. "I demand a rematch." "No, partially because we're already out of time for this half day, partially because I don't give a single crap about your pride," Eraserhead promptly turned to the students. "All of you, grab your things and go home. I'm expecting you to arrive early tomorrow, got it?" "Yes, sir." "Good," Eraserhead glared. "Because tomorrow begins the actual training." And so, the first half day at UA had come to a close, and all Midoriya could think about was, what the hell just happened? Bakugo being snarked at, his quirk showing another application, people complimenting him while insulting Bakugo, things just seemed completely upside down all over the place. Izuku. Except for one thing that remained consistent, Shiratoko. "What you did during the fight was amazing," the cat girl chirped as she hugged the guy. "How did you get the idea to do that in the first place?" I just winged it, I guess. Midoriya scratched his head. I didn't have many options in the offensive department, and Bakugo could split me in half with one of his explosions, so it was fight or flight right then and there. Shirotoko tightened the hug. And you picked fight, and that was the best choice you could have made. Geez, thanks, Tomoko. Midoriya raised his head. I wonder if Tsuyu and Shiro had a similar first day dash. No. Don't focus on other people. Shirotoko grabbed Midoriya's head and made him look at her. Focus on me, your girlfriend, and the unconditional support I'm giving you. Gee, girlfriend? Midoriya turned beef red. You're going a bit fast there, don't you think? Okay, wife then. You just upgraded it. Shirotoko and Midoriya shared a laugh as they walked away, and as they did, Sekigai and Bakugo walked right behind them. God damn it, I got showed off by that fing Deku. Bakugo hissed. Of all people that could have kicked my butt, why him? Maybe it's time you stop being so narrow-minded, and start opening up your mind, Sekigai scoffed as she outwalked the guy. Otherwise, every time you fight with Midoriya, you're gonna lose. I don't need your advice, Chart. I can beat him whenever I want. So, you didn't want to beat him this time? Realizing the implication, Bakugo blew up and unleashed explosions everywhere as he chased after the smug Sekigai, with Yaoyorozu, Tsuyu, and Shiro running to check the event. All in all, the first half-day had ended okay. Maybe. The next day, Midoriya was reading a newspaper while eating his breakfast, his mother cleaning nearby. The newspaper had the average news about sports, heroes, and the like. The thing that caught his attention the most, however, was the headline, reading in bold letters. All Might dies victoriously. The ultimate evil and ultimate good wipe each other out. Midoriya held back a chuckle at the fact this sounded like an episode of an anime. One that didn't bother hiding its spoilers. That's not something funny, Izuku, Inko remarked with a weary tone. Without the symbol of peace keeping everyone safe, who knows what kind of anarchy will come. Yeah, but the symbol of evil has also been killed, Mom, Midoriya replied, taking a bite of his toast. Even if there are villains left, it's just small fry compared to All Might's nemesis, who isn't even around anymore. Perhaps, but I'm still worried, Inko sighed. With All Might gone, there will be a lot more pressure done to heroes in training dash. And I will meet, even exceed, those expectations, Midoriya stated. Don't worry, Mom, I'll help continue the peace All Might left behind. Don't worry? Izuku, I'm your mom, part of my job is to constantly worry, okay? Inko chuckled. But anyway, you're gonna be late for college. So finish up quick, please. Or I could just start running with a piece of toast in my mouth. No, that's what girls do. If you're gonna do it, you should use something different, like an onigiri. Sharing one more laugh, Midoriya finished, changed, and left the house with a bit of confidence. Which was soon thrown out the window when he met Shirotoko and Mei outside. Izuku, the cat girls exclaimed in unison. Tomoko! Mrs. Shirotoko! Midoriya exclaimed back. What are you doing here? Tomoko's here to walk to college with you, Mei stated, pushing the young adults together. And I have something to talk about with Inko. Mei barged inside, and closed the door, leaving the young adults to begin their walk to the station. So, Shirotoko paused. All Might's kinda dead dash. I don't want to talk about that. Oh thank God, neither did I. Shirotoko got an idea. In fact, I wanted to suggest something like a little get-together. Get-together? Midoriya asked. Yeah. During lunch, we go up to our classmates and try to get to know them better. We only got the bare minimum during the demonstration test, and as future heroes, knowing our fellow heroes is always a plus. Midoriya scratched his chin and hummed in agreement. He was a bit curious about his other classmates, anyway, perhaps this wasn't such a bad idea. This was a terrible idea. Greetings and thank you for accepting my offer, fellow heroes in training. Shirotoko cheerfully exclaimed to the group of Class 2A students in front of her. Now, we're not gonna take too much of your time, we just want to learn some stuff about you, and then you're free to go. So, who would like to go first? How about you, a student with black hair asked. You're the one who got us all together, seems fair for you to start. Okie dokie then. I'm Tomoko Shirotoko, and my quirk is called Search, Shirotoko chirped. If I touch somebody, I can tag them and keep track of their status, strengths, and weaknesses in a 5-apple radius. Apple? Sekigai blurted. What's that supposed to mean? I've discovered that by apples, she really means miles, Midoriya explained. So, her quirk lets her keep track of people up to 5 miles. Well, that doesn't SCK as much as I thought it would, Bakugo stated. Anyway, I'm Katsuki Bakugo, and dash. Nobody cares, Sekigai interjected. Anyway, I'm Kashiko Sekigai, and my quirk is Chart. I can summon a chart from my palms that can then scan someone to give me their general information, age, health, she eyed Bakugo. Chances of becoming a hero. Bakugo rolled his eyes and looked away as the next student, a guy with burnt skin with small pieces of skins patched all over his body, and black hair. My name's Dabi. His actual name is Toya Todoroki, he uses Dabi while role-playing with his friends, the blonde girl with sharp teeth explained. Anyway, I'm Himiko Toga, nice to meet you. Oh yeah, you were the one with the transforming quirk. Midoriya chirped. That was such a cool quirk. Was? Himiko repeated in mock offense. It still is. One quick bout of laughter later, the next student introduced themselves. She was a girl with sharp teeth and a mass of fire serving as her hair. Yo, everyone. I'm Mo Kamiji. The hottest heroine you'll ever see. A little on the nose, don't you think? Dabi asked. Besides, what does your quirk do anyway? You were one of the few who didn't showcase their quirks during the demonstration test. This reminded Midoriya of the few that didn't go through the test, mostly because they didn't have quirks that didn't have situational conditions. He also remembered Shiratoko didn't show hers, but that was only because she literally couldn't physically show it. Kamiji promptly took off one of her gloves and presented her index finger. Put this in your mouth. Dabi took a step back. Stay away from me, weirdo. Himiko took a step forward and put Kamiji's finger in her mouth. Kamiji closed her eyes, and after a second opened them to reveal Himiko's temperature. You're okay in temperature. Whoa! Midoriya exclaimed. Your quirk turns you into a living thermostat? Basically, Kamiji smiled as Himiko pulled back her finger. I call it thermostat, and if you put anything in my mouth, I can tell you its current temperature. Pretty cool, right? Dabi shook his head. Quite a letdown considering how cool you look. Kamiji blushed. You think I look cool? I used to. Then I saw what your quirk can do. Now I think you're a disappointment. Kamiji began unleashing a barrage of mini slaps against the bored Dabi, and as she did, another student, a girl with blue skin, spoke up. Hey, wasn't there a guy with messy green hair just now? Everybody looked around, and they saw that Midoriya was nowhere to be seen. Luckily, however, Shiratoko had tagged Midoriya before he disappeared. Although he felt much closer than she expected. You can open your eyes now. Midoriya obliged, and he found himself on the rooftop of the building, with a blue-haired young woman standing in front of him. I'm Nijire Hato, she said. Nice to meet you. Izuku Midoriya, same, he scanned his surroundings. Did you take me here? Yeah, I needed to talk with you in private, Hato smiled. Away from the others. Midoriya was starting to get creeped out. Your demonstration yesterday seriously impressed me, Hato twiddled her fingers. First you said it could only affect you, and then you reveal it can affect other people too. Yeah, that was an accident, Midoriya sheepishly smiled. I didn't expect it to happen at all. But you can make it something willing, Hato replied, brushing Midoriya's hair as she added. All you have to do is train your quirk some more, and then you'll know what to do. Midoriya grabbed Hato's hand and gently put it down. I know that, but I plan to train at my own pace. There's no point working out if you only tire yourself. MHM. Yeah, I see what you mean, Hato then put a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. Still, if you ever feel like training, come to me, alright? Could you please stop that? Midoriya once again took off Hato's hand. You're making me uncomfortable. You mean, you're not used to female contact? I'm not used to anybody invading my personal space. Hato raised an eyebrow. Invading your personal space? Is that really what you think I'm doing? What else could it be? Midoriya folded his arms. Constantly touching me even though I didn't give you permission to do it? Hato shrugged. I always thought that was normal while making offers. Offers? Midoriya tilted his head. What offers? Hafo rolled her eyes and folded her arms. Midoriya, your quirk already shows a lot of ways it can improve. And if you're kind and polite enough to say yes, I can help your quirk reach its apex. Like mine. Like yours? Please, you think what I showed during the test was all I could do? Hato charged her hand then shot an energy ball upwards, causing it to explode into confetti, then repeated it with her other hand, only this time the ball exploded into tiny energy creatures. Then she surrounded herself in energy and shot it forward, creating ab copy of herself that mimicked her as she said. That was just scratching the surface. The energy Hato vanished, and the girl walked to Midoriya's side. And I believe your quirk can reach such heights as well. All you have to do. Hato extended her palm forward. Is accept my offer. Izuku? The duo turned around and saw Shiratoko and Sekigai standing by the open door. What's going on? Oh, Hato took me here to talk about something private, Midoriya explained while pointing to Hato. I was just about to tell her what I thought. But, we're gonna have to talk about it another day. Hato lowered her hand, eyeing Shiratoko before she looked back at Midoriya. Sorry for invading your personal space like that, Midoriya. Shiratoko winced. I hope we get to talk again another day. Me too. Midoriya found himself dragged by the ear into the stairs, and angry Shiratoko mumbling something as she said before adding. I'm never losing sight of you again. Please don't, Midoriya asked. Sekigai chuckled at the interaction, and slowly closed the door. This is Curious speaking. Sekigai slightly opened the door and listened carefully as she saw Hato talking to a phone. I'm afraid I didn't manage to convince Izuku Midoriya to join us. Just when he was about to make a decision, his girlfriend came out of nowhere and ruined everything. Sekigai couldn't hear what the voice on the other end said, but she did manage to hear what Hato said next as she did a peculiar gesture. She raised her hand, and lifted 2 fingers, her index finger and thumb, the latter pointing at her forehead. Don't worry, he will be liberated. I will make sure of that. Sekigai closed the door and hastily went downstairs. Something was up with Hato, and she would make sure to investigate this another time. Shortly after the get-together, Midoriya and Shiratoko went back together with their classmates to their classroom, and the latter quickly recapped what she learned to the former. After Midoriya left, Kamiji had been followed by Karakoko Iwata, who could create bubbles from her skin. She was also the last student to say what their quirk was, the rest only giving their names, or in other cases a nickname: Hawks, Overhaul, Spinner, Tensei Ida, Manami Iba, Shinji Nishiya, Tamaki Amajiki, Mirio Togata, Rumi Usajiyama, Yutakiyama, Ryuko Tatsuma, Kuchi Himawari, and Melissa Shield. Quite a list of names to remember, but Midoriya hoped he could manage. Midoriya, in turn, told Shiratoko what he found out about Hato, how her quirk allowed her to do much more than what she showed during the demonstration test, and how she was liberated, somehow. This only made Shiratoko more cautious about the girl, especially when she noticed she hadn't arrived yet. And Hawks wasn't present either. Having 1 student absent is one thing, but 2? Something must be going on, Eraserhead remarked. Eraserhead, Sekigai said as she stood up and raised her arm. If you'll allow me, I'd like to go search for Hawks and Hato. We'd like to go too, Shiratoko exclaimed, raising Midoriya's arm alongside hers. This could give me an extra few minutes for napping. Eraserhead sighed. Alright, you may go. As soon as you either find or fail to find Hawks and Hato, come back here. The trio nodded, and they promptly left the classroom. I can't believe Eraserhead actually allowed us to go, Sekigai said, adjusting her glasses. I thought he was gonna ask questions, at least. Never underestimate Eraserhead's laziness, Shiratoko chuckled. Well, now that we're here, and you came with me, there's a reason I asked to go out. Sekigai took a deep breath. Yesterday after taking Midoriya back to the get-together, I saw Hato perform a strange gesture when she thought nobody was looking at her. I investigated the gesture, and it's the signature gesture of the Meta Liberation Army. Whoa, wait, hold your horses, Shiratoko said. Are you suggesting Hato is a Meta Liberator? Not exactly, I think she's part of it, but that might not be her rank. Sekigai folded her arms. Anyway, she said something about failing to recruit Midoriya into their ranks, and that's when I decided to leave. So, Hato was trying to get me to join the Meta Liberation Army? Midoriya scratched his head. Why would she do that? And why would the MLA even care? It's not like my quirk's that strong. But it's tactically useful, even if it's just for 10 seconds, being able to walk around without being seen or heard by those without super senses is incredible. Sekigai stated, Shiratoko nodding in agreement. If they had such a quirk in their arsenal, they could be unstoppable. Yeah, for about 10 seconds, Midoriya quipped. Then they'd be very stoppable. I wouldn't be so jokey about this, Izuku, Shiratoko remarked. I mean, you said Hato felt liberated, and her quirk is vastly stronger than what she let on. Midoriya hummed at this statement, and thought about it. Shiratoko had a point. If Hato's quirk was so much stronger after being liberated, whatever that meant, how stronger would his quirk be after the same procedure? Come on, stop whining and come back to class. Not until you listen to what I have to say. The voices of Hawks and Hato immediately caught the trio's attention, and they quickly headed to the source. They found the duo at the lockers, Hawks leaning against one of them while Hato was flashing a pouty face. Here you are, Midoriya remarked as they approached the pair. Eraserhead was wondering where the heck you were. I was just minding my own business when Hato here stopped me on my tracks, Hawks explained with folded arms. And no matter how much do I tell her to let it go, she just won't stop. Let it go? Midoriya repeated. Let what go? The Meta Liberation Army. Hado stated. They're going to attack soon. And here we go again, Hawks groaned. Why don't you go ahead and tell them how you're part of the MLA too? I see, you don't believe I'm curious, do you? No, I believe you're curious, too curious for your own good, that is. Well, what if I could prove you that I really am curious? Hawks rolled his eyes. You already did dash. The person, not the personality trait. Hado exclaimed. Do we really have time for this? Sekigai groaned. Eraserhead's waiting for you to start the class. Knowing the man, he's probably fast asleep already, Hado shook her head. But anyway, that's besides the point. I'll just take a couple seconds of your time. Hado, without wasting any time, clasped her hands together and rubbed them before throwing the resulting energy in the air, bathing her in it as her skin became blue, her hair became a shade of pink, and her eyes became green with black scara. Boom! Curious. Hado chirped. Are you still in denial or what? While Midoriya, Shiratoko, and Sekigai looked positively stunned at what happened, Hawks simply shrugged. Anybody can dye their hair nowadays. But their skin? Shiratoko asked in disbelief. It's harder and more expensive, but still possible. Whatever, now that I've proven my identity, there's something I need to tell you, Hado turned to Midoriya. Something I need to tell you, specifically. Midoriya pointed at himself. Yes, it's true that I wanted to convince you to join the MLA, but I never really meant it, Hado explained. Ever since All Might and All Might's nemesis deaths became public knowledge, the MLA have quickly made a plan to try take over the underworld. And you supposedly defected once you realized their plan went to extremes you didn't approve of, Hawks spoke. But you can't defect outright or else they'll kill you, so you decided to be a double agent and stall their plan as much as possible. Yes, but yesterday, my worst fears were realized. This is Reedestro speaking, it's okay, curious, we've managed to secure an adequate replacement for this Izuku Midoriya you proposed. Hado winced. Why you did? How? That's besides the point. What matters right now is that we have our newest agent in the army, and ready to help bring the liberation the world deserves. But, are you sure this new agent will work as a replacement? Oh yes. I dare even say they might be a better agent than Midoriya could have ever been. But the decision has been made, curious. Your help is appreciated, but we already got our new agent. And I expected you to be in your best behavior when you meet them later today. Reedestro, out. Click. They found someone to take your place, Midoriya. And they've got all the other pieces ready to begin their plan. Hado added. I need you to be as cautious as possible and dash. Okay, Hado, that's enough, Hawks stated as he grabbed Hado's hand. You've had your fun acting about this stuff, but we should dash. Maybe we should hear her out? The group turned to Midoriya, who was twiddling his fingers as he added, All Might's dead, and there's currently no news on anybody capable of taking his mantle. Same with his nemesis. Unless somebody replaces them, anybody could try to take their place, and crime rates will rise. Exactly. Hado exclaimed. And if we want to survive to see another day, we need to get ready to repel the attack. We still have a class to get to, though, Hawk sighed wearily. So could we please focus on that first? Fine, but you'll hear me out when we walk back home. Fine. The red-winged man led the way back to the classroom, and before they joined the group, Hado gave Midoriya a wink and whispered, thank you, before taking her former look back. As they walked back, however, Midoriya couldn't help but wonder what the MLA had planned. The next day, the question of what the MLA would do still pestered Midoriya's mind as the guy walked together with Shiratoko to the train station. Izuku? The boy flinched and snapped back to reality. Yes? You're worried about what Hado said, aren't you? Shiratoko frowned. About what the Meta Liberation Army might have planned? Midoriya paused for a moment before he sadly nodded. Don't worry about it, Izuku, we're gonna be fine, Shiratoko put a hand on her best friend's shoulder. Hado has a plan to keep us safe from the MLA, and I'm gonna have to stop you there, Tomoko, Midoriya took a deep breath. You know what happens when you tempt fate. You're right. Sorry. The duo remained silent the rest of the way to the station, until they got on the train and found Hado, as well as some other students, already inside. Oh hey, Hado, Midoriya remarked. I didn't know you took the same train. It's the only train that can take me straight to UA without wasting hours of my life, Hado sighed. And anyway, I wouldn't be excited if I were you. I have the feeling something's wrong. Have you been watching the Star Warriors movies again? Hawks, the guy sitting next to Hado, spoke while reading the newspaper. No. Well, yes, but this feeling's different. Hado stated. I feel like you know who will strike today. First you said it'd be soon, and now you're sighing it'll be today, Hawks rolled his eyes. If tomorrow comes and nothing happens, what will you claim next? I wouldn't be so skeptical if I were you, Dabi, sitting next to Hawks, said as he looked through the window. I can see UA being under attack from here. Midoriya and Shiratoko, as well as Hawks and Hato, ran to the window and saw the front yard of UA being attacked by a group of masked adults. There was a single person repelling them back, mostly by using some kind of cloth. As soon as the train stopped, the young adults ran out and headed for the gates, where the rest of their classmates were waiting for them. What's going on? Midoriya asked. Your guess is as good as ours. Ryuko answered. We took the train here, and once we arrived at the gate, boom. Sudden invasion. Suddenly, one of the masked people flew outside the gates, and the students ran inside to get a better look at what happened. They saw Eraserhead fighting against the masked people, with a golden visor covering his eyes. You, stand back, the man barked at the young adults. Don't do anything reckless. Who are these people? Hawks asked as another grunt was sent flying. They're grunts from the Meta Liberation Army. Eraserhead stated as he knocked a couple of the grunts out. They were waiting at the campus this morning. Everybody threw a look at Hato, who immediately stated defensively, don't look at me. I didn't invite anybody here. Then she turned to Hawks. Although I'll definitely say that I told you so. Seriously, Hato? Now of all times. Hawks sighed. Look, can you use your plan to repel these people back? I can, but we need to use our quirks. We can't do that without either a hero license or permission from a pro hero. Tensei pointed out. Students of Class 1A, you have permission to use your quirks. Eraserhead exclaimed as he slammed a grunt on the ground. There. You have your permission, now get to work. Upon hearing that, the first student to act was Melissa, who crossed her index and middle fingers and summoned a yellow barrier around the students. Midoriya, use your quirk next. Midoriya created a bomb and slammed it on the ground, the ensuing smoke cloud surrounding every student. The barrier surrounding the cloud vanished, and the cloud dissipated soon after to reveal the students were nowhere to be seen. Or at least, that's what the grunts saw. No way, all of us were affected? Hawks asked in disbelief. Just how many people can you affect with your quirk, Midoriya? 20, apparently. Midoriya replied. Anyway, I think I know what we should do next. We have to split up and take out as many grunts until the 10 seconds pass. The students nodded and they spread apart, some of them, like Usajiyama, taking the chance to attack some of the grunts head-on. Hell yeah. Take that you little sheet, the rabbit-themed student exclaimed. To think we'd get some proper fighting training this early in the semester. Dabi chuckled as he shot a few blue fireballs at the grunts. Notably, the ball were the same shade as the world as soon as Dabi shot them. UA really is the best. Don't kill anybody, Dabi. Himiko exclaimed as she knocked out a grunt with a jab to the neck. One of these grunts could have information we could use. Tisk, fine, I'll be careful. As that happened, Mirko hopped from grunt to grunt, ending her streak when Spinner tackled one of the villains and pinned them to the ground. UJRK. I was on a lucky streak. Worry about your pride later, said a booming voice. Mirko turned around and saw the source of the statement, Ryuko, transformed into a dragon, who then smacked some grunts hard enough to send them flying. One of these grunts flew straight into a tentacled arm, belonging to Tamaki Amajiki. I'm so lucky I had takoyaki for breakfast, the guy dryly said as he prepared to launch the grunt. Mirio. Have at him. Tamaki shot the guy, and from the ground burst Mirio, punching the villain into unconsciousness. Unfortunately, though, he was left naked, and just in time for Invisibomb's effect to run out. Eek. Manami screamed bloody murder. He's naked. Forget naked, he's visible. Spinner shouted. We're all visible now. Ingenium exclaimed. Dang it, my quirk's time limit must have run out. Midoriya generated a pair of Invisibombs. I'll try to get some of the villains. Try not to get caught. Midoriya threw a pair of bombs, but while one hit a group of villains, the other hit Bakugo. God damn it, Midoriya, that must have been done on purpose, he yelled as he began throwing explosions everywhere. Meanwhile, Hawks and Hato shot feathers and energy blasts at groups of grunts below them, until a shadowy figure caught them and slammed them on the ground. Everybody turned around to see a muscular man that kinda looked similar to Bakugo had been the one to slam dunk the duo, and with him came more grunts. Holy shit, they cloned Bakugo! Dabi exclaimed. About DMN time I got a good warm-up, the Bakugo copycat said with a twiated grin. You bunch should do just fine. Before he could do anything else, though, Hato and Hawks shot energy blasts and feathers at him respectively, allowing them to break free and return to their classmates. And as soon as the man and the grunts tried to attack, the man was trapped in a pile of tape, while his grunts were tangled with a long tongue that raised them into the sky. Zero. Azui. Midoriya chirped as the duo promptly arrived. I told you to call me Tsu, was what came out of Tsuyu's muffled voice as she slammed the entangled grunts into the ground. And we're not alone. Just then, a cannonball was shot straight at a grunt heading straight for Tsuyu, some more ball being shot as their creditor, Momo Yaoyorozu, entered the fray. Momo! Sekigai chirped as the creator went next to her. I'm so glad you and your class are here. Less talking, more strategizing, she stated. What can your chart tell us about the blonde man? Sekigai hastily summoned her chart and scanned Muscular moments before he freed himself from Zero's tape. That guy's known as Muscular, real name unknown. He's a serial killer that was incarcerated on Tartarus until he escaped a few months ago. Great, we're dealing with an escapee from hell, Hawk sighed. What about his quirk? Midoriya asked. It's called muscle augmentation, and he can use it to surround his body in muscle fibers. Sekigai explained as the man was slowly surrounded by some pink stuff. Doing this not only makes him more resistant to damage, but it also makes him stronger. Eventually, the man got surrounded by so much pink stuff muscle fibers pretty much that he easily broke free of the restraining tape, flashing a sadistic grin as everybody looked horrified at this action. And then Bakugo was freed from the effects of Invisibomb. Finally. What the hell did I miss? Did those MLA assholes clone me? Muscular simply cackled at the statement, surrounding his fist in more muscle mass as he prepared to rush towards the young adults. Suddenly, a giant foot stepped on him, and everybody looked up to see it belonged to Yu Takayama. I just remembered, my uniform's made with my DNA, she said cheerfully. That means I can use my quirk and my uniform won't be destroyed. Oh right, mix our DNA with the school uniforms. Mirio said, snapping his fingers. That's what I was forgetting when I got my uniform. Could somebody please cover him up already? Manami demanded, beef red as she covered her eyes with her hands. And most importantly, Eraserhead cracked his knuckles. Everybody keep your guard up. There could be more grunts coming. And they are. The groups looked up, and a helicopter flew into the area, but not before shooting an array of missiles at Takayama, knocking her back into her base size. With that done, some more masked grunts came down before a different type of grunt came out. This one had a black, long-sleeved jacket, as well as a jebberly invisible look that was outlined with white lines, mouth, eyes, hair, everything had an outline. And going by the hourglass figure, the grunt was a female. Well, look who we have here, the grunt giggled. It's been a while, Yue. Did you miss me? A long silence passed until Shiratoko asked. Does anybody know her? Everybody shrugged and shook their heads. Oh, trust me, the invisible person chuckled, before contorting their face to flash the most sinister grin she could muster. You'll know who I am soon enough. Back where we left off, Eraserhead shot a powerful glare at the outlined person, using his quirk in the process. However, the person was completely unaffected. I see, Eraserhead narrowed his eyes and turned off his quirk. She's a mutant-type quirk user. With her immunity to Eraserhead's quirk revealed, the outlined invisible person cackled maniacally before explaining who they were. My name's Toru Hagakure. And I've come here to let the Meta Liberation Army destroy the university that destroyed my dreams. Toru Hagakure. Eraserhead's eyes widened. That's the name of one of the Apocicants during the entrance exams. And one of the first to fail to boot. And she's going to destroy UA as revenge? Zero scratched his head. Geez, talk about a sore loser. Quiet. I don't expect any of you to understand. Hagakure folded her arms. After all, you all didn't get the chance to become a hero taken away from you. Girl, just try to enter another university, Hawks remarked, pocketing his hands. Sure, they might not be as good as UA, but that's no reason to immediately decide to destroy us. Hagakure groaned, then scanned the ground to spot Hato among the students. Curious, she exclaimed. What the hell are you doing here? Wait, curious? Mirio asked as he glanced at the glaring Hato. You mean like the news person for the Meta Liberation Army? Hato took a deep breath and unveiled her true form, to the shock of most of her classmates, except for the obvious ones. And in the middle of the shock, Spinner and Hawks exchanged looks, and the matter grabbed the former and flew to the underside of the vehicle. No way, it's actually her. Kamiji remarked. But why would she go to UA in the first place? To escape, Hato answered, clenching her fists. Escape from the sick, twisted, disgusting superpower that's the Meta Liberation Army. How strange, you were all on board with the army a few months ago, or so I was told. Hagakure tilted her head before she jumped off the vehicle. What happened that changed your mind? Hato narrowed her eyes and remained silent. Oh, I see, giving me the cold shoulder, huh? Well, I'm sure you'll explain yourself eventually. Hagakure raised one of her arms and aimed it at Hato. But until then. Hagakure's fingers briefly became visible before they became pitch black, with red veins. Your quirk is mine. Hagakure's pitch black fingers extended towards Hato, ready to steal his quirk, only for Kamiji to jump in the way and have her back stabbed by the fingers. Kamiji! The fire-headed girl twitched and convulsed as a red light went through the fingers and landed with Hagakure. She promptly released the fingers and retracted them, allowing Kamiji to hit the ground. Kamiji, are you okay? Dabi exclaimed as he ran to and lifted the young woman. Come on, answer me. No response. Dabi leaned his head close to her chest, and to his relief, he heard a heartbeat. She's not dead, just unconscious, Dabi said. Somebody needs to take her to recovery girl. I'll do it. Siro said, raising his hand. Dabi handed Kamiji to the tape man, and he ran back into the university as Hagakure spoke. Ugh, all this quirk does is tell me how hot something is. And the way to use it is so disgusting, what a disappointment. Dabi clenched his fist. Take that back. Huh? Dabi opened his fist, and he prepared to throw a blue fireball as he yelled. Don't you dare call her a disappointment. Before throwing the fireball, Dabi increased the output of the flame as much as he could, unleashing what was basically the breath of a dragon from his palm, one which seemingly engulfed Hagakure and the grunts. And then the smoke dispersed and a barrier had been formed around Hagakure, dispersing as soon as the smoke cloud vanished. The grunts, however, were nowhere to be seen. Humph, for a hero in training, you certainly wasted no time going for the kill. Hagakure remarked, not even sounding condescending, but genuinely surprised. Has All Might's death changed the standards that much? Dabi gritted his teeth, and as the rest of the students tried to stand their ground, Tsuyu, as Midoriya and Shiratoko noticed, looked particularly disturbed. That quirk. Very interesting, isn't it? Hagakure asked with a proud smile. You see, this quirk lets me dash. Suddenly, an invisibomb was shot straight at Hagakure, successfully hitting her and making her visible. Not only that, but just like Bakugo, she was left looking everywhere in a seemingly blank world. In terms of looks now, besides a long flowing mane of messy hair, she didn't look much different than the grunts before her. What the hell just happened? She cried. Where did everybody go? Class 1A, and Yaoyorozu, began their attack on the now visibly green Hagakure while Midoriya summoned another invisibomb, and shot it down, covering himself, Tsuyu, and Shiratoko. Tsu, don't worry, we're currently invisible thanks to my quirk, Midoriya told the frog girl. Only those with super senses can see us, understood? Yeah, ribbit, Tsuyu frowned. But how long will we be invisible? 10 seconds, Shiratoko stated. Tsuyu shook her head. That's nowhere near enough time. You looked positively disturbed by what Hagakure's quirk did, Midoriya lowered his eyelids. But it was in a way that made it seem like you've had heard of such a quirk before. What do you mean, Izuku? Shiratoko asked. How can you be sure she heard of the quirk before? She looked shocked, but not confused, Midoriya replied. If you had seen the quirk in action before, Tomoko, wouldn't you have been curious about it? Maybe, but it's a weak argument, Izuku dash. It's not a wrong one, though. The green duo turned to the frog girl. Look, we don't have much time, but I'll say this, I'm about to blow your mind in a single bound, so what happens in this attack, has to stay in this attack, got it? Midoriya and Shiratoko nodded, and soon after, Tsuyu faced Hagakure as lime-green electricity surged through the frog girl's body, and her eyes glowed. Prepare to be shocked, then. Hagakure was trapped in a clusterfuck of a cage made by Nishiya, surrounded by Karakoko's bubbles, and further enforced by every other quirk the students could muster. However, Hagakure still broke free out of it through sheer force, sending everybody flying back just as Midoriya, Shiratoko, and Tsuyu became visible again. Huh? You think that feeble cage would be enough? Hagakure boasted. If you want to beat me, you're gonna have to give it your game. Just then, Tsuyu took the chance to leap forward, landing right in front of Hagakure and sticking out her tongue as electricity kept surging through her, shocking the invisible young woman. That's All Might's quirk? Hagakure narrowed her invisible eyes. How did you get his quirk? Tsuyu remained silent, and slapped Hagakure with a power-charged tongue, sending the invisible young woman into the ground. The frog girl winced and covered her mouth. Are you okay, Tsu? All-ine, Tsuyu said with a muffled tone. Hohis on Hagakure. As if on cue, Hagakure leaped off the crater and lunged at Midoriya, prompting Tsuyu to jump into her and send her crashing elsewhere. As their fight continued, everybody stood stunned at the display, except for Sekigai, who used her chart to analyze both participants. What she found from doing so, however, was rather Interesting. I don't get it, Sekigai squinted her eyes. How could this be possible? What could be possible? Yaoyorozu asked. According to my chart, the quirk factor of both Azui and Hagakure have an additional mutation, effectively splitting them in two. In Japanese, Sekigai? Shiratoko asked. Azui and Hagakure both have multiple quirks. As if on cue, an explosion happened, and Hagakure was sent flying back into the area with Tsuyu on hot pursuit, ready to kick the ground with a pair of charged kicks, until Hagakure jumped up and returned to the flying vehicle. Well, one thing's rather clear, I don't have to look too much for what Sensei told me to destroy. The invisible young woman folded her arms. But I know better than to do anything while I'm heavily outnumbered. So, I'll retreat for now, but this isn't the last you'll see of me. Eraserhead threw his scarf at the girl, but she simply transformed her fingernails into claws and slashed it to bits, its pieces falling down as Hagakure spoke. You may have won this time, but when the Meta Liberation Army finally make their proper move, there will be nothing you'll be able to do to stop us. Hagakure cackled as the machine flew away, with the pair of Spinner and Hawks jumping from underneath it and landing safely on the ground. The tracker has been placed, Spinner said as he gave a thumbs up to Yaoyorozu. And assuming that's not enough, one of my feathers has been left behind, Hawks added. Anyway, is everybody okay? Kamiji took a hit for me, but besides that, everybody else is fine, Hato answered, twiddling her fingers as she turned to Tsuyu. As for what happened, well, Azui over there just did something cool, yet weird, in order to drive away Hagakure. What did she do? Hawks asked, raising an eyebrow. Hato folded her arms and pouted. I'm not going to assume you're lying, I just want to know what you saw. Fine, but it's difficult to explain, Hato scratched her head. She was surrounded by electricity, and then she took a leap strong enough to leave a crater. I think she powered up, but that's just a guess. Whatever Azui just did, it doesn't matter, what matters is that the villains have been driven away, Eraserhead stated. Now, let's go inside and get our normal class schedule back on track. Everybody whined. We just survived an attack by the Meta Liberation Army. Bakugo growled. Can't you give us a break and let us go back home? If this is your attitude after just one attack, you might as well change universities, Eraserhead sternly replied. The job of a hero is filled with these kind of situations. What you just experienced today, hopefully just once, is what you're gonna have to deal with on a daily basis once you become heroes. Have I been clear? Yes, sir. Then let's get back inside. And Azui, Yaoyorozu, go back to your classroom too. Yes, sir. Everybody began walking back inside the building, with Tsuyu jumping close to Midoriya and Shiratoko. Once she got close enough, she leaned against their ears and whispered. I'm sure you have questions about what happened, so if you want answers, come see me at the graveyard after school. With that said, the frog girl kept hopping to the building. Midoriya and Shiratoko exchanged confused looks, but they quickly shook them off and continued walking. They could see what Tsuyu wanted once they were at the graveyard. The day flew fast after the attack of the Meta Liberation Army, and besides the absence of Kamiji, the day had gone as normal as usual. Eventually, the day came to an end, and everybody began getting their things and going back home. Hey, Midoriya? Shiratoko asked as she approached the guy. Did you seriously just call me by my family name? Midoriya asked in shock. I think it would be fitting to call each other by our family names when the situation's serious, Shiratoko lowered her eyelids. Which, considering what I have to ask. What is it? Shiratoko leaned closer to Midoriya's ear and whispered, Are we gonna go to the graveyard to see what Azui's got? Yes, we will, Midoriya whispered back as he stood up. And we should do it now, the faster we see her, the better. Midoriya led the way to the door. And into crashing with Dabi. I'm very sorry, Todoroki, I wasn't looking where I was going. It's okay, Midoriya, don't worry about it, Dabi sighed. Just as long as you didn't break anything. Midoriya and Shiratoko raised an eyebrow at the statement, and they looked slightly down to see Dabi had a bouquet of flowers in his person. Where did you get those flowers, Todoroki? Call me Dabi, the guy sighed. As for the flowers, I found them at the garden on the university's backyard, and since I'm heading to the infirmary, I thought they'd make a nice gift. You're gonna go to the infirmary? Shiratoko asked. I mean, you got some nasty burns during training, but I don't think it's that serious dash. I'm not going there for my sake, Dabi frowned. I'm gonna go see how Kamiji's holding up. Right, she did get hit by Hagakure's thing, Midoriya folded his arms. Well, tell her we said hi. Dabi nodded, and the pair left the classroom, with none other than Sekigai coming with them soon after. She didn't stand by their side, though, instead, she kept her distance behind them, following them and hiding whenever they looked back. Of course, Midoriya and Shiratoko weren't so ignorant as to fail to sense her presence, but they decided to humor her for now. She would eventually get tired of following them, right? By the time Midoriya and Shiratoko had gone in circles for the third time, it became clear Sekigai wasn't gonna back down. So, Shiratoko turned around and snapped. "What the hell do you want, Sekigai?" The girl came out of the bushes. "Wait, how did you know I was here? You're as subtle as my mom's quiet, and she's not quiet at all." Shiratoko's tail sprung up as she bares her claws. "We got somewhere important to be, so tell us what you want and leave us alone." "What Tomoko's trying to say," Midoriya blurted, stepping in front of the cat girl, "is that we can't help but feel uncomfortable having you follow us around. And no, us not being aware you were following us wouldn't solve anything. My chart showed that both you and Hagakure, for some reason, possessed multiple quirk factors, which means multiple quirks," Sekigai explained. "I was following you in hopes you were going to meet with Azui, so I could ask her to explain herself. And you had to act like a creepy stalker for that?" Shiratoko snapped. "You're quite cranky today, aren't you, Shiratoko?" Midoriya asked. "Sorry, it's just that I already don't exactly like Sekigai, and having her be this creepy stalker is just too much." Shiratoko took a deep breath and turned to Sekigai. "However, I understand that you're in need of an answer, and so are we, so you can come with us if you want. Just never act like a stalker again. I make no promises. Now, where are we heading?" Sekigai quickly regretted her question when the duo led her to the graveyard, where they walked across the tombstones while the scanner girl clung to Shiratoko's arm. "I know, we don't like this kind of scenery either," Midoriya remarked. "But if Tsu told us to come here, it was for a good reason." "Tsu?" Sekigai repeated. "A nickname she told us to call her. I think it's supposed to mean she sees us as friends." Shiratoko smiled smugly at Sekigai. "Which means we got that over you. And speaking of Tsu, there she is." The trio reached the frog girl, who was crouching down in front of All Might's tombstone. And though her expression was as neutral as ever, a hint of sadness was still visible. "Hi, Midoriya, Shiratoko," she spoke, not looking away from the tombstone. "Who's the girl coming with you?" Sekigai flinched and hid between the greenettes. "I'm Kashiko Sekigai, and I want to know why you have multiple quirks." "I see," Tsuyu sighed. "The more the merrier, I guess." "So, you have All Might's quirk," Midoriya remarked, earning a nod from the frog girl. "How did that even happen? Are you his secret daughter or something?" "No. I'm not related to All Might." Tsuyu took a deep breath. "What actually happened is that I inherited his quirk, in a sense." "Inherited his quirk?" Shiratoko repeated. "How's that even possible if you're not related to him? And even if you were, he's dead." "She obviously got it before he died," Sekigai pointed out. "How she got it is still a mystery, though. All Might's quirk is a quirk that can be passed down from person to person. It has to be willingly passed down, so it can't wrongfully stolen. And he chose me to be the next user of it." Tsuyu explained thusly. "Now, the story of how he gave it to me." Tsuyu walked back home while carrying a pair of bags filled with groceries. The once cloudy sky had suddenly become clear, and the ground shook violently for a second or two before calming down. "Geez, the weather's scary today." Just then, another quake happened, only this time, a source was more visible. Somebody crashed nearby, and Tsuyu ran up to the crater. Inside it was a battered All Might. "All Might?" "Yes, All Might." The man stood up and jumped out of the crater, grabbing his arm as he landed in front of the girl. "What's your name?" "Tsuyu Azui, sir." Hearing this, All Might ripped off a strand of his hair and presented it to Tsuyu as he said weakly, "Young Azui, please, take my quirk." The man fell to his knees and Tsuyu took the hair. "Swallow it. And wait a few seconds." Having no time to process what was happening, Tsuyu took a deep breath and swallowed the hair in a single bite motion. She swallowed it whole, basically. Shortly after, pain surged through her body as her veins began glowing green, and she clutched her stomach, the number one hero watching with a smile. Eventually, from her lower back, a reptilian tail sprung out, and Tsuyu looked at it as the pain slowly died down, until it suddenly vanished. "What just happened?" she asked. "I've given you my quirk. It's a quirk that can be passed down. And gather strength as it does," All Might said as he tried to catch his breath. "As his current user, I had to look for a successor. And that is you, young Azui." All Might coughed. Blood and steam came out of his being. "Use the quirk well wisely. Protect the peace. And don't forget." With his remaining strength, All Might put his fingers on his face and made a smile. "Always smile." And with that All Might collapsed, bursting into a weaker, smaller, lifeless form. "I'm sorry, what?" Sekigai asked. Believe that. We were just attacked by an invisible girl that has a second quirk that lets her tender people quirkless, but you can't believe Tsuyu's story? Midoriya inquired. Right, because of that. One event, I'm supposed to believe that the dying symbol of peace crashed down near Azui's spot, offered her his quirk, then died without telling her how to use it. Sekigai folded her arms. I'm sorry, but I don't find that believable. Believe whatever you want to believe, Ribbit, Tsuyu said. Just promise me you'll keep this a secret. I doubt anybody would believe me if I told them. Sekigai, please, Midoriya interjected. The scanner girl took a deep breath and rolled her eyes. Fine, I'll keep this a secret. Now, if that's all we came here for, can we leave? Since when are you a scaredy cat? Shiratoko sighed. The statement went unaddressed as the group left the graveyard. Sekigai and Shiratoko took the lead, while Midoriya and Tsuyu followed them behind. Your secret's safe with us, Tsu. Midoriya told the girl. Thanks, Midoriya, Tsuyu replied. But be honest with me. Do you think it's weird? What? Do you think me being All Might's successor is weird? I mean, I could always transfer one for all to Tsuyu, All Might chose you. Even if it was a desperate decision, it was still his decision regardless, and I think it deserves to be respected. But most importantly, Midoriya flashed a smile at the frog girl. I think you'll make a great hero with or without Ofa, Tsuyu. The frog girl looked at Midoriya for a moment, her neutral look eventually transforming into a little smile. Thanks, Midoriya. The day after the revelation of Tsuyu inheriting One for All, things went back to normal for Class 1A, for the most part at least. There was one notable change, and that was with Kamiji. Kamiji's hair was now a shade of hot pink, drooping down past her waist with spiky points all over it. At the very least, it was clear her fire hair was a result of her quirk. Is that how your hair really looks like, Kamiji? Midoriya asked as he scanned the girl. Yeah, it turned yellow, stood up, and waved like a flame when I got my quirk. As a passive mutation, Kamiji played with her hair. Does it look bad? No, I think it looks pretty, Midoriya smiled. And I think Dabi thinks it's cute too. Kamiji turned around, and caught a glimpse of the guy looking at her before he looked at the window, feigning ignorance. The young woman giggled at this, but everything went quiet as soon as Eraserhead entered the classroom. Good, you're already on your seats, the man scratched his head and yawned. Let's get to your class for today. Eraserhead, are you okay? Melissa asked. You seem rather tired. Well, more tired than usual, Ingenium added. I had to work overtime in order to look at the direction pinpointed by Yaoyorozu's tracker, Eraserhead explained, Hawk's ND spinner exchanging thumbs up as he added, speaking of Yaoyorozu, she gave me an interesting suggestion before coming here. The class grew curious. No pun intended, in Hato's case. As you all know, the Meta Liberation Army attacked us not too long ago, and one of your classmates lost their quirk in the attack, Eraserhead stated, Kamiji sulking at the statement. I don't want you to think this means their hero career is over. Or that they're lesser because of it. Eraserhead glared at Bakugo, who flinched and looked elsewhere as Kamiji raised her head. Lacking a quirk doesn't destroy someone's chance at becoming a hero, it simply makes the road to get there harder. So, today in Hero Basics 101, we're gonna practice hand-to-hand combats, no quirks, Eraserhead continued. This will also be a chance to help those with less combat-oriented quirks learn how to defend themselves. With that said, let's start class. And so the class began, the normal lessons being doled out by the students, anxious for the Hero Basics class to begin. And in the blink of an eye, Hero Basics 101 came, and everybody were at the field with their gym uniforms. Alright, this is how we're gonna do things, Eraserhead stated. I'm gonna have each of you pick another classmate to fight. Then, you will be shown a few close combat moves. I want you to try use the same moves during the fight, and if either of you use your quirks, the user's disqualified and their opponent wins by default. Tisk, winning by default, Bakugo huffed. That's the most invalid of valid victories. Sensei, can some obvious pairings be denied? Shiratoko asked before throwing a sly look at Bakugo. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bakugo will only try to get his butt kicked by Midoriya if left alone. Why you little dash? Eraserhead narrowed his eyes and unleashed his quirk. Don't start a fight, you two. Sorry. Although, Shiratoko does bring up a good point, Eraserhead sighed as he turned back to normal. Alright, let's do this, the pairings from our last one-on-one practice are denied. So Midoriya couldn't fight Bakugo, and Shiratoko couldn't fight Sekigai. Got it. Alright, try to find a partner. You got 5 minutes. Midoriya and Shiratoko flinched as everybody but them began searching for a battle partner, the first one being Bakugo reaching for Sekigai. Hey, scanner. Fight me. Fine then, Sekigai swayed her hair to her right. If you're so desperate to have me teach you a lesson. I'm the one who'll be teaching you a lesson. Considering your personality, I'm keeping my expectations low. And as the roasting match continued, Midoriya felt someone touching his shoulder. And Midoriya? The guy turned around, and his eyes widened upon seeing Kamiji pointing at herself with a nervous smile. Would you fight me? Midoriya exchanged looks with Shiratoko, and they shared smiles before the cat girl walked towards Hawks, leaving the greenette to answer. Sure, Kamiji, let's fight. The quirkless girl looked shocked for a second, before she gained a wide smile and gleaming eyes. Eraserhead promptly showcased some moves once everybody picked a partner. They were nothing too fancy, a grapple, a couple punches, a Nelson hold, and so on. And the one he picked to test these techniques on was Ingenium, who seamlessly helped get the moves across. Thanks for the help, Ida, go back to your group, Eraserhead said. As for the rest of you, did you get that? The students nodded. Then prove it, first fight will be Bakugo against Sekigai. Geez, Teach, shouldn't you save the best for last? Bakugo scoffed. That's exactly why we're first, and not Midoriya and his partner or whatever, Sekigai replied as she walked to the arena. How dare you put Deku above me? Bakugo snapped as he joined the arena too. That's it. I was humoring the idea to give you a chance. But now, I'm gonna destroy you. Sekigai flashed a cocky smirk. Can you do it without your quirk? Bakugo clenched his fists. Just watch me. Begin. Bakugo ran towards Sekigai and threw a punch, which she dodged before launching a punch right at Bakugo's gut. This stunned him long enough for Sekigai to grab his arm and raise him, pretending to throw him into the ground. Bakugo, realizing what was happening, aimed his free hand forward and released an explosion right at Sekigai's face, freeing him and allowing him to regain his footing. And then he realized what he just did. Bakugo, you used your quirk, Eraserhead bluntly stated. Therefore, you're disqualified, and Sekigai wins. Wow, first his childhood friend and now the grump of the class, Hawks snickered. Bakugo just can't help make a fool of himself, can he? Yeah, but I feel he'll make a fried chicken out of you if you say that to his face, Dabi shrugged. God damn it, this is unfair. Bakugo growled as he stomped back to his classmates. I didn't even meant to do that. It was a reflex. Eraserhead grabbed Bakugo's arm. That's precisely the problem, Bakugo. The explosive blonde threw his arm in front of Eraserhead, but before he could unleash an explosion, Eraserhead used his quirk on him and explained. I want everybody to listen. As Bakugo here has just demonstrated, some of you have integrated some of your quirks into your mind so much, your body reflectively uses it, even if you don't want to. The point of this class is to try figure out what takes to trigger this reflex, then work on suppressing it. 'Cause if not, the road to becoming a hero will be even harder than if you were quirkless. With that said, Eraserhead released Bakugo and turned back to normal as he stated, Shiratoko, Takami, it's your turn. The cat girl and Hawk guy entered the arena, and as soon as Eraserhead told them to begin, a couple punches and kicks were thrown before Shiratoko jumped into Hawk's back, and began messing with him until the guy spread his wings and flew until he dropped Shiratoko. Oh wait, Hawk said in realization. This counts as using my quirk, right? Are the wings part of your quirk? Yes dash. Hawks, you're disqualified. Shiratoko, you win. Ah? Shiratoko whined. I didn't want to win on a technicality. Sometimes winning on a technicality is better than not winning at all, Eraserhead stated sternly. Now go back to your group so Midoriya and Kamiji can do their fight. Wait, we're next. Midoriya and Kamiji exclaimed in unison. Eraserhead raised an eyebrow. Got a problem with that? Well, no, but dash. Then head to the arena and fight, we don't have all day. And so, Midoriya and Kamiji headed to the arena and waited until Eraserhead told them to begin. One thing Midoriya noticed during the wait, though, was how nervous Kamiji felt. Her legs slightly shook, her fists were uneven, and sweat could be seen going down her forehead. Nevertheless, he shook his head and stood focused. Begin. Midoriya and Kamiji ran towards each other before unleashing a pair of fists, which wound up hitting each other in the cheek. The attack made them go back a bit, but it didn't stun them long enough to not allow them to quickly counterattack with a pair of kicks, clashing equally before lowering their legs. Kamiji took a couple deep breaths, and Midoriya took this chance to head for her and open his palm. Just as he got ready to charge an energy ball, however, he remembered the conditions of the fight and cancelled his charge, opting to launch a punch forward instead. Kamiji saw this and quickly dodged before grabbing Midoriya's arm and lifting him before slamming him down into the ground. Kamiji caught her breath once again, and Midoriya smiled and said, Nice grapple. Alright, I think that's enough, Eraserhead remarked. Kamiji, you win. And congratulations, you're the first to win in a manner other than a technicality. Kamiji helped Midoriya stand up, and the duo walked back to their classmates and spectated the next encounter, Hado vs Kamui Woods. Midoriya? The guy turned to Kamiji, who was flashing a smile at him again. Only this time, it wasn't nervous, but genuinely happy. Thank you. Midoriya returned the smile and nodded. You're welcome, Kamiji. For the remainder of the week, Class 1A and Class 1B both were given classes on quirkless self-defense, and the rest of the time were normal classes. Currently, the students were all walking back home together, and the combination of mutants, emitters, transformers, and a quirkless got the attention of everybody that spotted them. This attention was mostly restricted to odd looks, though. Howdy there. Until now, apparently. Would you happen to be students of UA? The group turned around, and to their minimal shock, next to them was a group of reporters, with the leader looking rather excited to meet them. Perhaps we are, Spinner of all people spoke. Why do you ask? Oh, for nothing, really, the reporter woman replied, lowering her eyelids as she added, we just want to know if you'd be up for a couple questions. The students all exchanged looks, and nodded before turning back to the reporter woman, whose eyes glowed as they answered. And yes. Fantastic, the woman chirped as her crew prepared to start the interview. Now just give us a few minutes and we'll begin. The young adults, however, were more concerned with the fact that they had just agreed to do the interview. They were pretty sure they were going to say no, but then they felt their very beings be forced to say the opposite. Was this the woman's quirk at work? Okay, let's begin with you, the woman chirped, aiming her microphone at Midoriya and Shiratoko. You two seem like an adorable pair, are you two a couple? If not, does UA reinforce a no-couple policy? Midoriya eyed Shiratoko, who blushed with a sheepish smile as she took a step forward and answered. We're not a couple. Yet dash. Excuse me? Midoriya blurted. But I'm pretty sure that we'll get there eventually, Shiratoko continued, ignoring Midoriya's blurt. As for UA, I don't think they frown down upon couples, as long as we focus on our hero studies first and foremost dash. You heard it from the mouths of the heroes of tomorrow, everybody, the woman exclaimed, seamlessly turning to the camera. Even in the hero business, romance is present and messing with everyone's minds. That's not what she dash. Now let's turn the conversation to you, the woman aimed her microphone at Kamiji. There are rumors that a student was rendered quirkless during the Meta Liberation Army's attack on UA a few days ago. Are these rumors true? She doesn't have to answer that. Dabi snapped. Actually, she does, because every single one of you agreed to answer my questions, so shut your stitched mouth and answer what I ask of you, the woman growled, her tone turning concerned as she eyed the camera. You're gonna cut that off, right? The cameraman fearfully nodded. Great, she turned back to Kamiji. Now, back to the quirkless student rumors, are they true or not? I wouldn't be able to say. Yeah, even if they were true, how would we know? Ingenium asked, raising his arm. Yeah, we're doing everything we can to forget about that incident, Hado said, getting between the microphone and Kamiji. Why don't you finish this interview already and leave us alone? The woman looked angry at the interruption, but she quickly regained her composure and played along. Okay, let's make this quick then, are you curious? Hado blinked twice. An odd question to ask, but I guess you could say I'm kinda curious dash. No, you misunderstood me. I don't mean the personality trait, the woman grinned maliciously. I mean the person. Hado's expression turned into a fearful one, but just before things could go anywhere, a female voice shouted to the heavens. Smash! An incredible gust of wind happened and brought everybody to their knees, allowing Midoriya to generate an energy bomb and slam it into the ground. The ensuing explosion turned the group invisible as they ran away. The students. They're gone, one of the cameramen exclaimed. Forget about the students. That was All Might's successor just now, the woman exclaimed, her grin turning from malicious into excited. We gotta go find them before we lose our exclusive. The camera crew and the woman chased after what they thought was All Might's successor, and the students quickly left their minds. For now. I can't believe I just used my quirk in public. Midoriya whined, covering his face as he sulked on the ground. Eraserhead is gonna kill me when he finds out. Maybe, but until then, be happy. Shiratoko said as she rubbed Midoriya's back. You just helped us escape the clutches of the media. Truly, the worst kind of villain, Spinner spoke, the rest of the students nodding in agreement. That must have been Sakura Sugimoto, a relatively new reporter whose quirk allows her to force people to say yes or no to her whims, Hado explained. Luckily, she can only do this once per day, for only one question. We were pretty lucky, then, that Midoriya could make us invisible, Kamui Woods remarked. Otherwise, we might not have come out of that interview with our dignity intact. Everybody else nodded in agreement, except Bakugo, who growled and looked elsewhere. While we're on the subject on the interview, though, we were pretty lucky that someone was there to act like All Might's successor, Himiko blurted with a shrug. It was rather nice of them to do this for a bunch of strangers. Shiratoko flinched. Bunch of strangers my butt, Dabi spoke. If All Might's successor came to help us just when the media were getting on our case, it was probably somebody from UA. And now it was Midoriya's turn to flinch. Let's not get into assumptions. The only evidence we have for that idea is that they came just as we were bothered by the media, Ingenium interjected. Until we have more concrete evidence, we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Midoriya and Shiratoko sighed in relief. Alright, let's focus on something else then, Bakugo growled, snapping a glare at Hato. Why the F did that reporter seem interested in you, and how in the hell do you know her? Would it kill you to ask more nicely? Sekigai asked. Yes. Hato lowered her head. It's no secret that the world of media is very competitive, so during my time as a reporter of the MLA, I made several allies and enemies. Sugimoto is one of those enemies. So, an old rival from when you were a reporter, huh? Sekigai scratched her chin. We're gonna need to be careful, then. She's always had a fixation on me, so I highly doubt she'll go after any of you unless it leads her to me, Hato hummed. That means you should be very careful, Hawks. Of course. Hawks rolled his eyes. Well, I believe we should head home now before something like this happens again. The students quickly agreed, and everybody bid farewell and went their separate ways. Except Hato and Sekigai, who joined Midoriya and Shiratoko respectively. Okay, Shiratoko sighed. Why are you tagging along this time? I need to talk with you in private, Sekigai answered. And I don't feel safe going home all by myself, Hato told Midoriya. So, I was hoping I could stay at your house, if only for today. Midoriya reached for his pocket, and took out his phone as the duos between him, Hato, Shiratoko and Sekigai separated. Oh wow, you brought someone other than Izuku home. Emi chirped, glancing between her daughter and Sekigai. Who's this girl and why isn't she Izuku, though? This is Kashiko Sekigai, Shiratoko spoke plainly. She's a classmate from Class 1A, and she came here to discuss something with me. In private, if possible. Sekigai added. Emi eyed the two for a moment, then took her daughter inside. Once the two were far away from Sekigai, Emi took a deep breath. Okay, sweetie, I hope you're prepared to break a hard dash. She's not going to ask me out on a date, Mom. Shiratoko exclaimed. Well, never mind then, have fun. Emi jumped away and Sekigai closed the door and headed to Shiratoko's side. If it helps, I didn't hear most of what she said. Whatever, Shiratoko sat down. Just tell me what you want to talk about and get it over with. Sekigai sat down, and a few seconds after thinking what to say, she spoke. We need to think of a way to protect Azui. No doubt about it, Shiratoko sighed. It was nice of her to do what she did, but now she's gonna be hunted by the media. And even if they don't go after her, our classmates are already getting the idea that All Might's successor is in UA. So, we need to think of a way to divert their attention, Sekigai stated. I was hoping we could brainstorm a way to do just that. Shiratoko eyed Sekigai with skepticism, but once she saw the honesty in her eyes, she took a deep breath and smiled. Alright, if it's for Tsu's sake, then let's brainstorm. Meanwhile, what had once been a normal evening at the Midoriyas quickly became a horror for Hato, as turning the TV on showed her a sight she hoped to never see. Curious, as in her real identity, standing alongside the MLA in an interview. That's not me. Midoriya turned the TV off, and ran to Hato's side. Hato, are you okay? That's not me. I know that's not you. Midoriya glanced back at the TV. But who is it? Midoriya had mixed feelings in regards to how the weekend came right after seeing a fake Curious on the TV last night. On the one hand, considering the MLA attack and the intense training he and his class got, a chance to rest was more than welcomed. But on the other hand, Hato had definitely been disturbed by what she saw, and if any of their classmates had seen the TV, they would definitely have some questions for her. He was also wondering what Shiratoko and Sekigai were up to. He didn't want to sound insensitive, or worse, punny, but he felt that keeping those two in the same room together for an extended period of time would devolve into a cat fight. He just hoped Shiratoko would answer the phone soon. Good morning. Midoriya turned around, and saw Hato leaning against the wall near the door to his bedroom, looking like she would fall asleep at any moment. Good morning, Hato, he answered as the young woman groggily walked to the couch. How did you sleep? Terrible, Hato answered matter-of-factly. I couldn't take it out of my mind that I just saw someone impersonating me on live television. I mean, do you know how many people watch TV? Considering we're in the age of computers and phones, that's a pretty good question. I'm being serious, Midoriya. Hato snapped as she sat right next to the guy. I revealed my identity to my classmates. Don't you think they're gonna bombard me with questions when they see me again? You made your defection from the MLA quite clear during their attack, Midoriya argued. I don't think our classmates are just going to forget about that after seeing one news broadcast. Knock knock knock. Confused and startled at the sudden banging on the door, Midoriya stood up, only for his mother to beat him to it and open the door. Emi, Shiratoko, and Sekigai were standing outside. Ah, Emi, what a surprise. Inko said. You didn't tell me you were coming. I didn't have the time, Emi replied with a shrug. Anyway, can we come in? My daughter needs to talk with your son, just as how I need to talk to you. Inko frowned. Should I be worried? Emi paused. Let's go somewhere more private. The women went to Inko's bedroom, leaving Sekigai and Shiratoko to look at the green-blue duo for a while. I'm sorry to tell you this, Shiratoko, Sekigai put a hand on the catgirl's shoulder. But I don't think Midoriya's a virgin anymore. It didn't take long before Shiratoko scoffed in return. Oh come on, Sekigai, we both know Midoriya's not the kind of guy who'd do the nasty with anybody. Just as how I'm not saying he necessarily started it. Or consented dash. Okay, I'm stopping you right there. Midoriya snapped, stomping his way to the duo and separating them. Nothing happened between me and Hato. She came here, 'cause she didn't felt comfortable going home alone, and she wound up sleeping here when it got too late. Sekigai walked up to Hato and used her quirk on her. My chart says that Hato's currently feeling a sensation of tiredness and depression, but it also says her physical stats are perfectly healthy. Yeah, that's because of something she saw on the TV last night. It scared her and she didn't get to sleep well. Shiratoko raised an eyebrow. What did she see? Ask her yourself, I'm not going to divulge something so personal. Midoriya scratched his chin. I'm more interested in what are you doing here, though. I call your phone, but you didn't answer. I left it charging. As for why I'm here, Shiratoko scratched her head. Well, remember Ida? The guy who seems like a nice guy, if a little bit stilted and by the book? He called Shiratoko and asked if she would be willing to participate in an activity he has planned. Sekigai explained as she joined the green duo. When he asked if she could ask you about it, she said yes. Ugh, Sekigai, I wanted to tell him. And what's this activity he has planned? Shiratoko and Sekigai eyed Hato, and then leaned closer to Midoriya's ears, whispering. He wants us to help Eraserhead find potential Meta-Liberation Army agents. They whispered loudly enough to be heard, apparently, since Hato raised her head and her eyes widened as Midoriya whispered back. I thought Eraserhead and the faculty had that covered? They used to, but between teaching and their underground heroism, they don't have the time to go around and identifying potential agents. Shiratoko replied. It's a very simple job, too, Sekigai added. We just go outside, look around, and see if anybody performs the MLA's signature gesture. Midoriya raised an eyebrow. And that is? A finger gun, the thumb pointing at the head. The trio turned around, and saw Hato standing up, grabbing the edge of the couch so as to not fall over. So, you heard us, Sekigai sighed. Sorry, Hato, but Eraserhead asked that you didn't get involved. Hato's heart sunk. Why? Shiratoko frowned. He saw the fake Curious on TV. Hato's heart sank even further, and Midoriya felt frustrated. Of course the first person he'd find out had seen the faker would be Eraserhead. But then, if I can't get involved, what am I supposed to do? Hato asked. I can't just stay here and let that faker ruin my name. But you can't go outside either, lest you get attacked by people who think your defection was fake. I could just stay in my Hato form. It's still too risky. Midoriya pointed out. For now, it's for the better that you stay here and keep calm. Hato sat back down, mumbling, Great, someone's impersonating me and I can't even clear my name myself. Speaking of searching for agents, Shiratoko said. Eraserhead said that Class 1B was going to help too. Class 1B? Midoriya smiled. So that means. Tsuyu Azui. Hantasiro. The frog girl and soy face guy turned around, meeting with their homeroom teacher, Vlad King's, face. Class 1A is requesting help with a secret activity. Do you want to help? The students of Class 1A and 1B had gathered at the park on the day they would begin their joint activity, finding any potential agents of the Meta-Liberation Army. I still think this is a pretty weird idea for a first date, Shiratoko remarked. Midoriya gently smacked her on the head. It's not a date, Tomoko. I know, I was. Just trying to cut the tension with a joke, Shiratoko cried, grabbing Midoriya's hand as she eyed Class 1B. I mean, am I the only one who notices the 1Bs looking at us? Angrily, Midoriya turned around, and he could definitely see where Shiratoko was coming from. Besides Tsuyu, Shiro, and Yaoyorozu, the rest of the Class 1B students were staring at 1A with looks of scorn and distrust. Don't pay attention to them, cat face, Bakugo stated. They're just angry, 'cause they're just a bunch of extras who couldn't get in the actual hero class. Says the extra of 1A, Sekiguy quipped. Say that again, Scanner. If dare you. Everybody, calm down. Eraserhead demanded, activating his quirk. We have a job to do and we don't have all day. The longer we talk, the more time we waste, so let's get started. Everybody know what to do? Everybody nodded. Then my class and I will search one side of the park, while 1A can search the other side, Vlad King remarked before shaking hands with Eraserhead. I wish you good luck with your search, Eraserhead. Same to you, Vlad King. And so, the classes began spreading apart, though a certain group of friends reunited for a brief PRD. I made some binoculars for everyone, Yaoyorozu said as she revealed said objects. They're installed with a camera lens that, as soon as you find anybody doing the MLA sign, you can press a button at the side to take a picture. Wow, a binocular camera hybrid? Sekiguy said, grabbing a pair of them. You're always impressing me, Momo. Yaoyorozu giggled and blushed, looking elsewhere as she handed some more copies of the thing to everyone else. I'll team up with Tsu so that once she spots someone, I can go ahead and wrap them up, Shiro explained to Shiratoko, who was listening intently. I'm guessing you're gonna team up with Midoriya? Yeah, although, Shiratoko eyed Midoriya, who was talking with Tsuyu. To be perfectly frank, I want to talk with him about a couple things more than look for MLA agents. But you're still gonna look for them? Of course I will. Thank you so much for diverting the media's attention from us, Tsu, Midoriya told the frog girl. I honestly don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there. You'd be bothered all the way home until you were squeezed out of all your information, Tsuyu lowered her head. That happened to me once. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Midoriya scratched his head. Still, thanks for the help. Midoriya, Shiratoko stated, getting the boy's attention. We need to get going. I'm on my way. Wait, did you just call me Midoriya? Shiratoko grabbed Midoriya's arm and stomped away, leaving Shiro and Tsuyu to silently pray for Midoriya's safety. The green duet sat on a bench, each occasionally searching the area with the binoculars before trying to pass off as just two students sitting together. You never call me Midoriya unless something happened, the boy blurted, getting Shiratoko's attention. So, is something wrong? Shiratoko frowned and lowered her head. I'm frustrated. Frustrated? Ever since we entered UA, the only thing I've wanted to do was to try grow closer to you, and show everybody the good synergy our quirks have, Shiratoko twiddled her thumbs. But instead, I'm starting to feel like our relationship hasn't changed in the slightest. That nothing has changed. Midoriya raised the binoculars and looked elsewhere. Is that a problem? Shiratoko opened her mouth, but closed it when she saw the binoculars and pouted. Tomoko? I'm not going to say anything until you finish searching the area and put down those cameraculars or whatever. Otherwise, you won't listen to me. I can listen to you while searching dash. Midoriya, we're childhood friends, we know how each other works. Midoriya finished his search and lowered the binoculars, taking a deep breath before answering, You're right. I'm sorry. Shiratoko lowered her eyelids. Now that you're listening, here's your answer. I'm not comfortable with the fact the most we've advanced in our relationship is calling each other by our first names. That's a common sign of closeness, isn't that enough? Shiratoko raised her binoculars and searched the area for a while. She only spoke once she put them down. We're adults, Midoriya. We should be doing things other than using our first names. Like what? You know, holding hands, snuggling, cuddling, going on dates, having SE dash. Shiratoko stopped herself, blushing brightly as she raised her binoculars again, and Midoriya blurted. Most of those things don't sound like things friends would do. Except maybe cuddling. Finally having enough, Shiratoko lowered her binoculars, turned to Midoriya, and pulled him by the neck of his shirt as she proclaimed. I want to be more than friends with you, Izuku. I like you. And not like, you're my best friend, like you, but I love you, like you. With that said, Shiratoko released the boy and pushed him back, pouting as she folded her arms and looked through her binoculars again. Midoriya, however, didn't wait until she lowered them to speak. You know. I did have a feeling there was something more going on with you. That you wanted something, but I could never figure out what. That and I was scared. Shiratoko's eyes widened, but she kept focusing on the search. You're not just my best friend, Tomoko. Ever since I cut off ties with Bakugo, you've been my only friend. Even when we got into UA, you're the only one of our classmates I can really consider a friend. And the risk of it all burning down because I assumed you wanted to go further. It was a risk I didn't want to take. A risk I couldn't take. Shiratoko got ready to lower her binoculars. Until she spotted someone doing a familiar hand gesture at an alleyway. Izuku, I think I found an agent, she said as she took a picture. Did you hear anything of what I just said? Midoriya asked. Yeah, I did, but use your binoculars and you'll see what I mean. Midoriya obliged, and to his shock, not only did he see the hand gesture, but he could see the person entering the alleyway. We need to follow them. The green duo stood up, and ignoring the blatant law-breaking he was gonna do, he used his quirk to turn himself and Shiratoko invisible, running towards the alleyway with her as she informed the rest of their class about their discovery through the phone. Do you think they'll get the message in time? Whether they do or not, it won't matter if the agent escapes. The duo entered the alleyway just as Midoriya's quirk's effect wore off, but once inside, they found it was completely empty. What the? I'm pretty sure we saw somebody go in here. Midoriya flinched. Wait, could this be Dash? Look out! The green duo jumped away before a metal pipe struck them, with some metal beams following soon after. They dodged those, but this didn't ease their concerns in the slightest. Don't you just hate it when it seems you're making progress, only for it to turn out to be a trap? The duo looked up, and saw a familiar outlined invisible girl standing at a rooftop, holding a metal beam across her shoulders like it was nothing. Not me, she smirked. In fact, I love it. Midoriya and Shiratoko prepared to fight, gritting their teeth as they exclaimed. Hagakure. Back where we left off, Midoriya and Shiratoko got ready to counterattack while Hagakure's body glowed, before reforming to make herself more visible. You know, it really says a lot of your potential as heroes that you went to look for what you thought was a meta-liberation army grunt, Hagakure scoffed. And I mean that in the good and bad way. Suddenly, Shiratoko lunged forward and swung her claws, Hagakure narrowly dodging the attack, though she did get a scratch mark on her cheek. Nice try, but you're gonna have to be less predictable, Hagakure snickered. I know how your quirk works. Once you touch someone, you tag them, and can track everything about their location from miles away. Shiratoko looked shocked at the statement, but she quickly shook it off and growled as she prepared to attack again. As Hagakure noticed, Midoriya sent a distress call through his phone. Whoa, calm down, little kitty. Hagakure raised her hands. I have no intention of fighting either of you. Midoriya narrowed his eyes. Says the one who threw a pair of metal beams at us. That's just the villainous way of saying hello, Hagakure shrugged. Remember that saying? Heroes say hi with a smile, villains say hi with attempted murder. Midoriya raised an eyebrow, and this got a reaction from Hagakure, whose expression visibly saddened. You really don't remember, do you? That was the first thing they taught us in elementary school. Midoriya tilted his head. We went to school together? Don't hear her, Izuku. Shiratoko exclaimed. She's just trying to play with your head. Shiratoko lunged at Hagakure, but the invisible girl simply grabbed and clutched the cat girl by her throat. Tomoko! Midoriya cried. In case you haven't noticed, I'm on a level far above either of you combined, Hagakure narrowed her eyes. For what reason would I lie? Hagakure threw Shiratoko to Midoriya, who caught her in a bridal carry as she added. Besides, I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to give you an offer. Whatever offer you got, we won't take it, Midoriya proclaimed. Even if it relates to the fake curious? The green duo looked surprised at the statement, and as Midoriya gently put Shiratoko on the ground, Hagakure explained herself. As you probably know, the Meta Liberation Army has replaced Curious with a new one, a more loyal, obedient, and most importantly, powerful Curious. However, there's no reason for there to be two Curious running around. So, you want something to happen to Hato? Midoriya asked. I want you to deliver her back to the Meta Liberation Army. You can see her as some sort of peace offering, if you will, Hagakure folded her arms. Once you deliver her to us, we'll put the new Curious out if commission dash. You think I'm stupid or something? Midoriya stated, surprising the invisible girl. Why would you replace Hato if all you wanted to do with said replacement was to get her back? Izuku has a point, Shiratoko added. Especially since the new Curious was seen on television, there's no way you can just have her disappear after such a big entrance. Alright, fine, I get it, you're not convinced to sell out your friend. And I think that's pretty noble of you, Hagakure narrowed her eyes. However, I'm not lying when I say that there can't be two Curious running around. If the fake Curious doesn't vanish, then the real one will have to vanish instead, and you obviously don't want that, do you? You do it anyway no matter what we said. Midoriya generated an invisibomb. And to that we say, we're not gonna let you do what you want. Midoriya threw the bomb at Hagakure, and she blocked the bomb, only for the ensuing explosion to render her as blind as last time. With that done, Midoriya and Shiratoko leaped for the invisible girl, throwing attacks to her sides in unison. Only for her to block them with a smile. Did you really think this tactic would work again? Hagakure's arms morphed into cannons and shot a pair of cannonballs at the duo, sending them flying straight into a building. Superhuman senses. Hagakure exclaimed as she morphed her arms back to normal. It's such an useful quirk, but it was also a big pain to find it. Shortly after, the effects of the invisibomb wore off, and Hagakure regained her sight, with the first thing she focused on being Midoriya. You know, Midoriya, I have to admit that your quirk's pretty useful, Hagakure smirked. Definitely more useful than that temperature quirk I took from that literal hothead. Recognizing who she was talking about, Midoriya and Shiratoko growled as they stood up, and Hagakure aimed her fingers at them. In fact, I think I'll take your quirk, and give you that quirk for compensation. Hagakure's fingers turned pitch black and they headed for the green duo, who were promptly snatched away by some tape. What? Hagakure turned around and saw the green duo being placed safely on a rooftop, with Shiro standing beside them. Shiro. Shiratoko chirped. Sorry that I took so long to get here, Shiro replied with a sheepish smile. It took me a while to convince everybody else to come. Hagakure grimaced. Everybody else? Suddenly, Hagakure's fingers retracted and turned back to normal against her wishes, and a quick look to her side revealed why. Eraserhead was glaring at her, his quirk focused on her, while Vlad King generated a rope of blood, tied the invisible girl with it, and hardened it, causing her to tumble to the ground as the rest of classes 1A and 1B arrived at the scene. Tsuyu also appeared too, helping the green duo come back to the ground. Are you okay? Yeah, we thought we saw something, but it was just a trap set by Hagakure, Midoriya explained, continuing his explanation once the teachers reached him. She wanted to bargain Hato in exchange for the fake Curious going out of commission. What's that supposed to mean? Vlad King inquired. I don't know, but I doubt she would have followed on her end of the bargain, Midoriya shrugged. Also, she implied that we used to go to school together. Eraserhead raised an eyebrow. Did you? Midoriya shrugged. Not as far as I'm aware. I don't remember meeting her before the attack on UA. I can corroborate, Shiratoko added. I knew everybody in Izuku's class growing up, and even when the classes got shuffled, there were never any invisible people, let alone anybody named Toru or Hagakure. That bad, huh? The group turned around to see Hagakure shaking her head with a smug smile. Guess nothing really changed from middle school until now. Midoriya raised an eyebrow. What are you implying? Why tell you when you're clearly not gonna believe me? Hagakure scoffed. If you want to know what I mean, head back to where it all started, Aldera Middle School. Midoriya flinched. Aldera? Yup, go there and you'll get your answer, but don't bring your girlfriend with you, Hagakure smirked at Shiratoko. After all, curiosity killed the cat. Shiratoko growled, and Hagakure was finally taken into custody, with Midoriya watching the police car leave with a concerned expression. What's wrong, Izuku? Shiratoko asked. This feels too easy, he replied. You heard her, with that quirk mutation she's got, she's on a level above us, and everybody else. Why would she do nothing and let herself be captured now? That's not a quirk mutation. The duo turned around, and saw Tsuyu nearby, whose expression remained unfazed as she added. What Hagakure has is something greater, and more horrifying, than any mutation could hope to be. Shiratoko's eyes widened. You know what's up with her quirk, Tsu? I do, but sadly, I can't tell you anything here. Too many people. The frog girl got ready to hop away. When the time's right, I'll let you know what's going on. And with that, the frog girl hopped away, leaving the green duo alone to consider what to do next. Though they quickly came to the same decision. Aldera, then? Shiratoko asked. Midoriya grimly nodded. Aldera it is. Wait there, Deku. Midoriya stopped as soon as he entered the train and turned around, his eyes widening upon seeing Bakugo quickly dash into the train just as the doors slid close. Bakugo? What are you doing here? I heard you muttering on the way to the train station. You're planning to go to Aldera Middle School, aren't you? Bakugo sternly responded. Well, I'm coming with you. And I'm not going to back down from this decision. No, you definitely won't, Midoriya sighed wearily. I know you well enough to know you'll tag along no matter what I say. Just, please, don't make a scene. Bakugo rolled his eyes, and the train rode off as the boys sat down, Midoriya crossing his legs while Bakugo folded his arms. So, why are you heading to Aldera anyway? Bakugo suddenly asked. Your muttering didn't include a reason. You could actually tell what I was saying in my mutters? I've learned how to speak muttering some odd years ago in order to keep up with you. Now spill, what's up? Midoriya took a deep breath and looked elsewhere. I'm afraid it isn't something I can say in public, but to narrow it down, you could say I'm looking for answers. Just like me, huh? Midoriya flinched and turned around. You're looking for answers? Now it was Bakugo's turn to take a deep breath and explain. Back at Aldera, I was the king of our class. Hell, I was the king of the FING school. Even when I graduated and went to a high school, I still managed to maintain my title, despite having a shit ton more rivals for the title. Then, I went to a hero university, the Hero University. And all of that was just gone. You can't expect things to stay the same forever, Bakugo. But the change is so different it caused me whiplash. Everything was great in middle school, it got harder but was still manageable in high school, and now in college, a beach with a FING scanning quirk can kick my butt. Even you can kick my butt. You, the scrawny little brat whose only real power is to turn himself invisible. Midoriya smiled cockily. And render people blind as well. Drop that topic, now. Anyway, I need to find out what happened, and I feel that if I go to Aldera, I'll at least get some answers. It's the place where everything started, Midoriya remarked. Where people began to notice my quirk, where your ego reached unbearable levels. I think there's a good chance we'll get something out of it. They indeed got something out of it, but it wasn't any answers, but utter confusion. Right in front of them wasn't a middle school building, but a daycare, where kids ran around joyfully. The place wasn't even called Aldera anymore, the name had been changed to Sharnata. What the heck is this place? Bakugo asked. What happened to Aldera Middle School? It was demolished years ago. The duo turned around, and saw a woman with white hair with red specks around it walk up to them. Good morning, gentlemen, I'm Fuyumi Todoroki, and I'll have to ask you to leave right now, we're in the middle of work. Todoroki? Midoriya repeated. Isn't that Dabi's surname? So you're Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo? Fuyumi clasped her hands with a smile. Toya mentions you quite a lot. Says he sees you both as interesting rivals. Rivals? Bakugo repeated in disbelief. We barely even talk to him, which is nothing new for me, but Deku here generally speaks with everyone. He's just shy and watching his distance. Trust me, if you try to talk to him and get him to become more comfortable around you, you'll see what I mean. We're getting off topic here, Midoriya remarked. What do you mean Aldera Middle School was demolished years ago? Didn't you know? Fuyumi inquired, tilting her head. Apparently, a group of students from that school wound up causing a lot of trouble once they graduated, something about inflated egos and them possessing the belief they could do whatever they want. A police agent was sent to check the school undercover, it found traces of corruption there and potential villain-making, and the school was shut down and demolished soon after. Midoriya and Bakugo's eyes widened. It's on the internet if you want to learn more, but again, since we're busy right now, I'll ask you to leave. Once they had left the new business, the green-yellow duo went to a nearby library, using its computer in order to search news about Aldera's demolition. And, surely enough, they eventually found an article about it, reading. Aldera Middle School has been confirmed to house corruption that prompts its students to grow villainous mindsets, primarily dominated by an inflated sense of pride and entitlement. At least a dozen known villains have been confirmed to have studied in the middle school, and so the school has been shut down until new notice, and the faculty has been exposed and fired. And a few years later, they demolished the place and built a daycare where it once stood? Bakugo sighed. How the F did you miss this, Deku? I mean, I stopped giving FS about Aldera as soon as I graduated. What was your excuse? To be honest, I was trying to avoid remembering the school as best as I could. Midoriya shook his head. I wanted to have a fresh start, and put Aldera behind me. I see. Meanwhile, in my case, my so-called prowess and heroic potential means hogwash in light of this discovery. Bakugo snapped, sitting right next to Midoriya as he further ranted. I should have noticed earlier, it was so easy to put everyone under my boot. I should have known they were just skinning up to me in order to get attention as the school who taught the next #1 hero. Which by the way, I'm still gonna aim for that title, Deku, and don't you FING dare forget it. Hero rankings don't mean anything right now, Bakugo, Midoriya stated, looking strictly at the article. Right now, we need to figure out what does Aldera have to do with Dash. And then, he saw the full picture. Hagakure. Why are you bringing up Invisibitch all of a sudden? Bakugo asked, only to quickly connect the dots. Wait, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Hagakure acted like she had seen me before the entrance exam, but that was literally the first time I ever. Well, you know what I mean, Midoriya explained. She also mentioned Aldera, and she said I would get my answers if I went there, plus there's what we literally just read dash. And so, you're suggesting that Invisibitch is one of the students that went rogue and became a villain once they graduated from Aldera? Bakugo finished, earning a nod from the green-haired boy as he added, okay, let's assume this bats hit insane theory is actually right, which it might as well be considering how weird this FING situation is already. Where do we go from here? Well, for starters, we need to think of a way to explain this to our classmates, and be prepared for the worst, Midoriya stated. If they have any idea of what happened at Aldera, and discover that we were students there, they might grow to distrust us. That's something I'm used to. Sadly enough, I can teach you a few ways to deal with it, Bakugo sighed. What I can't teach you, however, is how to survive the heartbreak once your girlfriend finds out. Tomoko's not my girlfriend. Midoriya snapped. But you do bring up a good point. Bakugo raised an eyebrow, and Midoriya explained. How am I going to explain this to Tomoko? So, when are you planning to take the next step with Izuku, Tomoko? Shiratoko was confident she had managed to grow desensitized to what her mother would often say to get a reaction out of her. Unfortunately, like always, the wild pussycat member always had a way to get her riled up. Mom, I know you well enough to not trust anything you say, she responded. By next step, you could mean either becoming her girlfriend, or getting ready to give you a little of children. That's not true at all. I would be more than fine if you just had one kid. Mom. Haha, I'm just messing with you, sweetie, you should know that by now. Emmy chuckled, ruffling her daughter's hair. You do need to start working on setting up a relationship, however, because if I can tell you one thing, it's that Izuku won't take the first step himself. Is this something I should be present here for? The green duet turned around, and saw Sekigai looking at them with a raised eyebrow. No, I invited you here in order to discuss something with Tsu once she gets here, Tomoko stated, then turned to her mother. Which, by the way, is something you can't get involved with. So, if you could leave us alone for now, Mom, I'd appreciate it. How cold-hearted, essentially telling your mother to bug off. Then again, I do have business with my fellow pussycats, so I should probably go deal with it. Emmy ruffled Tomoko's hair once again. Don't start making out while I'm out, okay? MOM. Just kidding. Just kidding. Emmy laughed out loud as she left the house, Tomoko rubbing her forehead once she was out of view. Your mother is pretty unique, in a way, Sekigai remarked. How did such a bundle of energy get a daughter as serious as you? I can be a bundle of energy too. It's just that when Mom's around, I need to use most of that energy to withstand her constant tricks and jokes. Tomoko took a deep breath. Anyway, now that she's gone, I can use what I have left of that energy to talk seriously with Tsu. Speaking of Azui, where is she anyway? Sekigai checked her watch. She should have arrived here by now, shouldn't she? Well, she does have to train her quirk. Then, as if on cue, Tsuyu entered the house. With an arm on a cast. Sorry for being late, girls, I had to go see Recovery Girl. And it's pretty clear why, Sekigai remarked. What happened to your arm? I was training, testing the upper limit of energy I could hold, and went a little overboard. Recovery Girl says I should feel better in a day or two. Tsuyu explained as she walked to and sat down next to Shiratoko. Anyway, what did you want to talk to me about? Shiratoko and Sekigai exchanged looks before the former explained. Sekigai and I thought about your situation. Your help was appreciated while media bothered us, but that caused them to turn their focus to you. I'm very well aware of that. Tsuyu raised an eyebrow. What are you trying to get at? Sekigai reached for her back, and took out some blueprints, which she rolled right on the table to reveal schematics for an android inside. I present you, Android for All. Shiratoko chirped. We build an android that can unleash a power output similar to One for All, and so, when the media hounds you, it can function as a red herring. Tsuyu looked at the schematics for a moment, then bluntly asked with a concerned look. Please tell me you haven't actually started working on this thing. Shiratoko's smile faltered a little. Why do you say that? I'm just gonna burst your bubble right now while this android is still. Just an idea, it's not gonna work, Tsuyu stated. Based on my short experience with the Quirk, and what All Might was capable of, there's nothing in this world that can feasibly replicate the sheer power One for All has. Sekigai frowned. Really? Tsuyu nodded. Even if you were able to make an android with the latest technology, there would still be a significant gap between it and myself. The ruse would be discovered immediately. Well, if we can't make an android, what are we supposed to do, then? The Meta Liberation Army is still out there, probably gaining traction and followers as we speak. Instead of focusing on helping me keep One for All a secret and the newspaper spotlight away from me, you should focus on making up a plan to stop the army just in case we find ourselves involved. Involved? Shiratoko asked. We're just students, though. And we haven't even been through a full semester yet. You really think they're gonna care about that? They're villains. Ones with a vision, even. They're gonna do everything in their power to reach that vision, even if it involves hurting innocents, Tsuyu replied as she stood up. Now if you excuse me, I was told I need to go rest if I want this arm healed as soon as possible. Actually, wait a minute dash. But Shiratoko's words fell on deaf ears. Tsuyu walked out the door, and slammed it shut. Well, I guess that puts an end to our plan, Sekigai remarked. What do we do now? I want to do what Tsu said and focus on the MLA, but I want to do something to thank her for helping us back then. Thank her by focusing on the MLA, then. I gotta go home now, see you tomorrow? Sure, Sekigai. And so, the scanner girl left the house, taking the blueprints with her. With her out, Shiratoko sighed and turned on the TV, hoping whatever was on would cheer her up. Instead, she saw the wild pussycats engaging the fake Curious. What the? Emmy caught her breath as she scanned her surroundings and analyzed the situation. Not only had her team been sneak attacked by the new Curious, but most of them were already down, leaving only herself and Curious standing in the battlefield. Not only that, but while she only got her wounds recently, she felt like she had been dealing with them for months. So, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish with this? She lowered her eyelids. How is beating the wild pussycats supposed to benefit you? Aren't we a little curious, the woman snickered. Truth be told, the only benefit I have from this fight is that I get to prove my bosses that I'm strong enough to replace my predecessor. Emmy raised an eyebrow. Predecessor? There was another Curious before me, but she's nothing but a memory now. Curious smirked and clenched her fists. Just like how you'll be nothing but a memory when I'm done with your little group. Emmy smirked, confusing the woman. Are you seriously smiling at the prospect of your own death? Curious returned the smirk and chuckled. I guess it's true what they say about you, no matter the situation, you take it with a smile. Curious began laughing. And as Emmy stood up, Curious laughter got louder and she clutched her chest, dropping to her knees as she kept laughing and laughing. Wahat! Wahahat is going oh-ho-ho on with me. It's nothing to worry about, Emmy smiled with confidence. Just my quirk in action. Your quirk? I can make people laugh against their will, or if I'm feeling less sinister, cheer them up with just a smile. Emmy folded her arms. That way, no matter how bad or desperate the situation feels, I'll always be able to bring a smile to their faces. The hat, that's so ho-ho corny. Curious gritted her teeth and grabbed a couple objects. Now you definitely need to die. Curious launched the objects at Emmy, who dodged them as Curious activated her quirk, laughing maniacally as they blew up. The laughing continued as Curious kept throwing stuff at Emmy, until eventually, she dropped them, clutching her chest as tears streamed down her cheeks. I ha ha ha. I see a haunt breath. You're running out of breath just now? Emmy raised an eyebrow. Impressive, most people run out of breath immediately after I give them a laughing fit. Stoho. Stoho-ho. Stop it. Curious cried in the middle of her laughter. Stop it? Sure, I can do that, Emmy narrowed her eyes. But I'll need you to surrender first. When her fit paused, Curious shot a deadly glare at Emmy. You little. And suddenly, the ground between them rose up into spikes tall enough to block each other from view, releasing Curious from her forced laughing fit as a result. Sorry that I didn't arrive earlier, Ragamuffin. Gaining a smile, Emmy turned around and saw Eraserhead standing nearby, Overhaul touching the ground with one of his exposed hands. I'm gonna have to wash my hands thoroughly after this, Overhaul sighed. Are you sure the principal won't mind this, Eraserhead? He won't, Eraserhead stated. If he did, I couldn't give you a taste of what's to come. Overhaul raised a concerned eyebrow over this statement, but shook it off and began helping getting the wild pussycats out of the danger zone. Meanwhile, at the other side of the spike wall, Curious took a moment to recuperate her breath as she stared at the wall, then at the fleeting forms of the wild pussycats as they were taken to a safer location. Those little dash. What are you doing, you idiot? Curious turned around and saw the cold, enraged expression of her fellow MLA officer, Geaton, who had arrived on a large vehicle-shaped iceberg. I was informed that the wild cat pussies were related to one of the students we tried to take down, so I decided to try get rid of them before they could become a problem. First of all, their proper name is the wild pussycats, Geaton growled. Second of all, you should have at least informed the group that you were gonna try this stunt. You more than likely would have said no. What are you, 5? Geaton groaned. Listen, we got an important business meeting in a week, we need to get prepared for it, so stop wasting your time and come with me. Curious rolled her eyes and joined Geaton in his iceberg, which he then manipulated to make it drive away from the battlefield. As they left, Curious looked back at the wall, and made a mental note to herself, her scuffle with the wild pussycats wasn't over yet. Far from it. The next day, Shiratoko and Midoriya walking side by side to UA, the latter quickly noticing the former was a bit quieter than usual. Shiratoko? MHM, are you alright? Midoriya mentally hit himself for the obvious question. You seem quieter than usual. I'm fine, Midoriya. Shiratoko lowered her eyelids. Don't mind me. A couple seconds of silence passed. So, I heard that your mom and her team got into a pretty brutal fight with the new Curious. Shiratoko tightened her grip, wishing the silence had lasted a little longer. They did. And that Eraserhead and Vlad King managed to save them. Are they okay? They're recovering. But they're gonna have to be on hiatus for a long time before they can return to work. That's to be expected, I guess. Yeah. Another short silence came and went. Midoriya, I know you want to help me, but asking me this stuff isn't gonna cut it. Yeah, I had a feeling I wasn't being of much help here either. Midoriya scratched the back of his head. I just thought, if I made some small talk, maybe I could cheer you up a bit. Shiratoko smiled. Well, at least you tried. And you do sound worried for me. I can appreciate that. Midoriya returned the smile and nodded, remaining silent as she and Shiratoko entered the university. Once at the classroom, the atmosphere didn't change that much. The students waited for their teacher to arrive in either awkward silence or worried nerves. Overhaul, in particular, seemed to be in a contemplative state, which the green-haired duo quickly noticed. Chisaki? Midoriya blurted, getting his attention. Is something wrong? I'm sure you've seen the news report about the wild pussycats? Overhaul asked. How Eraserhead saved them and the new Curious escaped. Right, the new Curious did manage to escape, Shiratoko remarked. I just hope she doesn't start hunting for my mom again. She only survived that encounter due to luck. Overhaul hummed, but before he could either add something or divert his attention, Eraserhead arrived. Good morning, class. The students were eerily quiet. I'm guessing you're quiet because of the news yesterday, Eraserhead sighed. Don't worry, I'm fine, and most importantly, so are the wild pussycats. They'll need to take a hiatus, but they will return eventually. Midoriya put a hand on Shiratoko as she threw a relieved smile at him, all while Overhaul stared at the man intently. Now, there's something I need to talk to you about. Something about the Meta Liberation Army. The students quickly faced the man, who promptly explained. Thanks to the feathers Takami left behind, we've been able to discover that the leaders of the MLA are planning to reunite in their headquarters, which is where the feathers are located. If the reunion goes uninterrupted, the MLA could very well deliver yet another strike, one that we might not be able to fight back. So, Mirio said. What you're saying is? We're going to strike before the reunion gets to happen. The entire class gasped. Strike? Manami exclaimed. What are you talking about? As in, head straight to their headquarters and fight them? Precisely. That's completely insane. Dabi snapped, Himiko nodding agreement. We barely managed to fight back against a few of their goons. Now you want us to go fight the main threat? We'd be annihilated. Only if you do the dumb thing and go charging ahead like a maniac. There's a high risk involved, I know, but there's an even bigger risk if we do nothing, just like heroes have done for years. Dabi looked surprised as he sat down, followed by Himiko blurting, for years. I don't think it's hard to believe that heroes have gathered a bad rap because they wait for things to happen before they act. If we follow the same trend with this mission, we won't be able to fight back. The only way we can get the MLA out of our backs for good is if we strike before they get the chance to consider their next move. But how are we gonna do that? Tamaki asked. Their headquarters must be heavily guarded and dash. I can get inside. Everybody turned to face Nijire, who was clasping her hands. The MLA has been hunting for me ever since they announced the new Curious. I could act like I'm being taken prisoner by a mook, and my partner could then go to the weapons room to find something I think might be able to help us. Like what, exactly? Spinner asked. The MLA have been developing a weapon in secret. One that's so mundane in form, but so bonkers in execution, nobody would see it coming. And you know where to find it? Hawks asked. I do. And I think we all know who's the perfect woman for the job, Midoriya remarked thoughtlessly. Everybody turned to Himiko, who scanned her surroundings before pointing at herself. No, Toga, we're clearly looking at the decrepit-look fire user right next to you, Bakugo scoffed. I can do without the sass, Bakugo. Everybody could do without it, really, Eraserhead sighed. Anyway, that's what we need to discuss right now. We have to strike before the MLA get a chance to fight back, and we're gonna reunite with our fellow hero class to discuss strategy. Everybody got that? The students exchanged looks, then nodded. Then let's get started. At the Meta Liberation Army headquarters, Nijire was handcuffed, keeping her head low as a MLA grunt dragged her towards the gate. "I've come to deliver a prisoner," said the grunt. Another grunt approached the duo and scanned them. In particular, they took a moment to inspect Nijire, who had taken the trouble to unveil her true form rather than her normal skin disguise. "The original Curious, huh?" the grunt spoke. "How did you manage to capture her?" Dumb luck, sir," the grunt stated. "I found her unconscious at the streets, and knowing how valuable she is to the army, I captured her immediately." Well, whatever the reason, it doesn't matter so long as she's available for her execution." The grunt flinched. "Execution, sir? Just something I heard. Don't think about it too much and send her straight to the cells." The grunt nodded, and the duo promptly entered the headquarters. "Keep walking until you reach the stairs," Nijire whispered. "Head down, then turn left. That should take you straight to the dungeons." The grunt nodded, and obliged. Once at the stairs, they went down, then left, and in the blink of an eye, they found themselves at the dungeons. A soul grunt guarded the cells, and he reacted with shock upon seeing Nijire. "The original Curious," he exclaimed. "Did you take her to the leaders right away?" The grunt tilted their head. "You have to show her to the leaders so they can verify if it's the real one or not." The grunt glanced at a confused Nijire. "She looks like the real deal to me." "You can't be certain, pro-heroes have lately deployed some sneaky tricks. What you got here could be a pro-hero disguised as her." The grunt walked to Nijire. "Here, I'll take her to the leaders 4-. Suddenly, the other grunt grabbed his hand and slammed him against the cell bars, knocking him out instantly. Then, she adjusted her hat, revealing herself as Himiko. "That was a close call. Way too close for my liking," Nijire sighed. "Anyway, that should buy us some time. Open the cell so I can enter it." Himiko obliged, and Nijire stepped in as she spoke. "Okay, the meeting will happen soon, so you need to hurry. There's a weapons room at the 3rd floor, next to the meeting room. Once there, you'll grab a specific weapon to set it up at the meeting room, which should blow up as soon as the leaders step in." "Wait a minute, the meeting room is next to the weapons room?" Himiko asked. "Can't I just destroy the weapons room and let the explosion engulf the meeting room as well?" Nijire shook her head. "Too risky. And besides, the objective is to take out the leaders. Once you do that, we can destroy the weapons next." "Okay then. So, what am I looking for in the weapons room?" Nijire gestured Himiko to come closer, and she leaned as much as the cell bars allowed her. Then, Nijire whispered something to her. And Himiko was honestly baffled by what she heard. "You must be shitting me, there's no way that's an actual thing." Nijire shook her head. "Not only is it a real thing, but it's the thing that's gonna help us bring them down." Himiko took a deep breath. "To think my college career would include something like this. Okay, so, remind me where's the weapons room again?" A short explanation and scavenging of the weapons room later, Himiko slowly opened the door to the meeting room. Only to find what she assumed to be the leaders and top brass standing inside. "Sheet, the meeting must be already underway. What the hell do I do now?" Himiko looked at the object on her hand, and remembering her mission, she gripped it tightly. She kept the door open long enough to throw it as hard as she could, then slammed it close and made a run for it. One of the leaders, a man covered in a black robe. What was that? He stood up and walked towards the object, which turned out to be a banana that was consistently glowing. Geaton, another person at the meeting, looked at the object and immediately recognized it. "Skeptic, stay back you dumbass." "Why?" the robed man asked as the banana began glowing brighter. "You know what this is? It's a bomb, you a-hole. The banana's a bomb dash." Boom! The alarms blared as a slide of ice emerged, Geaton sliding down it as he called someone. "Hello, Curious? This is Geaton. I need you to go to headquarters as soon as you can. Reedestro and the other leaders were just killed by an explosive banana." Curious burst out laughing on the other end, which further aggravated the man. "I'm serious." When the ice hit the ground, it predictably shattered, sending Geaton into the ground. He quickly stood up and dusted himself before gathering control of the pieces of the ice. "I think there should be a body of water somewhere close to here. I must head there and get more ice." Suddenly, a fireball nearly hit him, but Geaton jumped back, the fireball hitting his ice instead. Good luck getting there without being fried alive. Geaton turned around, and he saw Dobby standing nearby, a fireball in his open palm. "A fire user?" "Indeed I am," Dobby smirked. "And unlike you, I can create my own fire." Geaton gritted his teeth. "It won't be long before reinforcements arrive and your little army gets fed." Dobby narrowed his eyes. So, I suggest you surrender now if you don't want to be completely demolished. Giten narrowed his eyes. You really think it's gonna be that easy? That by throwing a bomb disguised as a banana into the meeting room, that you'll manage to kill the top brass of one of the biggest armies in Japan? Dabi faltered. Wait, what was that about a banana? Then think again, a-hole. Giten snapped. Because even if some of the leaders are weak enough to be killed by it, it's not enough to take me out. And besides, there's still Dash. Without warning, Himiko jabbed Giten in the neck, knocking him out instantly. Sorry that I took your kill, Dabi, he was starting to annoy me. No, it's fine, my palm was being burned alive as we spoke, Dabi said, waving his hand to dissipate the fireball. However, I feel like you took him out too early. Why's that? I dunno, I just feel like he was about to say something important. One of the leaders of the Meta Liberation Army, a man with orange hair and an epic nose, slowly woke up to find himself in the middle of the wreckage that was the meeting room. Ugh, my head. What just happened? He slowly stood up and scanned his surroundings. The unconscious or worse, dead bodies of his comrades laid on the floor around him, and the sounds of a major battle could be heard outside. He walked slowly to the edge of the destroyed room, and saw as the MLA tried to fight back against the incoming flurry of pro-heroes. And from the looks of it, they were holding their own, but it was uncertain for how long. It's quite a sad sight, if I do say so myself. The man turned around, and saw the invisible frame of Hagakure's body leaning against the wall, rubbing her forehead. The Meta Liberation Army. One of the biggest, most powerful armies in Japan. And not only were you infiltrated by a bunch of young adults, but you, the leaders of said army, were taken out by a banana of all things. It was an explosive banana, the man said as bits of darkness began covering his skin. Oh right, thanks for making that clear, you totally don't look even lamer now, Hagakure folded her arms. Listen up, Reedestro, it's one thing to be beaten by pro-heroes, but people studying to become heroes? That's really pathetic. The darkness began covering more and more of Reedestro's face, and Hagakure, seemingly realizing what this meant, smirked and began walking around him. I guess the League of Villains is going to have to reconsider the potential offer of joining forces with the Meta Liberation Army. It's sad, really, I think we would have made a good team. Even had a name ready for it, Paranormal Liberation Front. Sounds cool, doesn't it? Too bad it'll never see the light of day. And why's that? Because the legendary Meta Liberation Army turned out to be unfitting business partners after UG. Suddenly, Hagakure found herself being grabbed at the throat by Reedestro, who was now almost completely covered in darkness. The hell are you doing, you scythe nose? You said it yourself. Reedestro hissed as his body began growing. The team-up offer. Reedestro gripped tightly and threw Hagakure to the wall. Is off. Hagakure hit the wall and slid to the ground, followed by Reedestro heading to the broken wall and jumping off, growing bigger and bigger as he did. As he plummeted, he began to stretch his fist to try hit something. Only to be sent to the ground by a giant fist. A giant fist belonging to Takayama. I hope I didn't arrive too late. No. Suddenly, from the spot where Reedestro landed, his pitch-black body rapidly grew bigger, eventually matching Takayama's gigantic size after a few seconds. He brandished his fists just as she readied to fight back, and exclaimed, "You're just in time."
Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.